Well, hello everybody. Welcome to the show today. It is what is today? It is February 20th. Yeah, I think that's what it is. Time is definitely flying. But it is of course it's your Sunday night. Hopefully you guys had a really good weekend. For me, it's an overcast Monday morning. But I do have a nice hot cup of coffee and a muted Thundero. So, all is good with the world. But
It is preferable, yes.
Yes, it is. But I had me a pretty quiet weekend. Did do a little bit of shopping. My wife, well, mainly my wife, watched the end of the Olympics, and that was pretty interesting. We'll get into that in a minute. But nevertheless, yeah, we should definitely get into it today. We have some interesting stories to both laugh at and maybe inquire about. But first thing I'm going to do is go over here and I'm going to hit that like button and share. Hopefully, you guys will do the same. Yeah, we'll get it going. So, how are you doing, Thundero? How was your weekend, sir?
My weekend was fine. Today, my wife and I went and saw Uncharted. The
Mm-hmm.
Uncharted movie came out
Mm-hmm.
with
Mm-hmm.
with little boy Tom Holland,
Yeah. Well, let's
and it was
go.
it was it was decent. There was a very weird decision made. I'm assuming at the studio level for him to only use a gun once in
Mm-hmm.
a movie about the Uncharted games, which doesn't make any fucking sense. But
Oh, CNC kills lots of people.
yeah, well, in this he doesn't as much. He does kill a few people. Well, it's assumed that he kills them. Uh,
PG-13. Wonderful.
yeah, but they don't. I don't think he shoots anybody. He only fires a gun once or twice, and they have like this moment where he puts on a gun holster and he looks like Nathan Drake does from the game with his gun holster and his nice little 45. And yeah, he does a nice little action drawing from his holster shot, shoots at a guy, and then the gun gets knocked out of his hand, and that's the last we see of it. So, but the weird thing is other people have guns. Sully doesn't have a gun either for some reason. Other people have guns, and they fire them routinely, but he doesn't get to fire it. So the way it came off to me watching it, and I was actually getting frustrated. I was like, why is there no gunplay in this movie about a game where there's lots of gunplay? Um, I was actually getting frustrated at a point, but it came off to me as like a studio decision, right? Like some executive didn't want him to have use guns, so he
Spider-Man
didn't really
doesn't.
get to use them at all.
Spider-Man doesn't use guns.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We're going to talk about it. I actually have it up as an article today, and we'll get into people's opinion of the Uncharted and the horrible decisions that were made. But anyway, well, I'm glad we have someone here that's seen it. But other than that, it sounds like Thundera went and did the kind of the movie thing this weekend, which is cool. Like I said, I did go shopping. I haven't been able to go in a couple of weeks because, I don't know why the people Japanese are all scared about the Omicron. So there aren't lockdowns
Still,
here. Yeah,
they're
I don't
still
know. They
scared of
they
it.
they had a kind of resurgence of fear. I don't get it, but like I said, Japan doesn't lock down. They just said, "Please stay home, please," and the Japanese comply, which is why everything works here so well. It's no big deal. That's the thing I think that a lot of people in the West are upset about. It's not that things, they're asking, "Hey, let's quiet things down, stay home," or here are some vaccines and stuff. I think the problem is that they're telling people they have to do it. That's the issue. Here, there's no mandates on anything. You don't have to do anything. But most people just comply because, well, they're Japanese. And I think most Western people would do similar if you just like, hey, we got this available. Hey, let's, don't go out unless you really have to, please, if you could. But they don't. In certain areas they mandate you have to do this. We're going to arrest you. And we see old men getting beaten up in parking lots and thrown to the ground by brutish police, and it's not good. It's not good. And of course, I don't even know if we want to get into the Justin Trudeau shit. I mean, my God, has that guy lost his goddamn mind? I mean, Jesus, the cops are riding through crowds with horses, trampling people. Then they're saying people threw bikes at the horses to hurt the horses. We have video, dumbass. We can see that that didn't happen. Then they're shooting people with rubber bullets at point blank range and using gas canisters. And they're saying, we haven't done anything like that. No gas was used. We have video, dumbasses. This is what's going on in Canada. The Ottawa police are lying on a daily basis, even though there is a profundity of evidence.
Gestapo gonna Gestapo.
That's true. Did you like my use of profundity?
I did. That was a good use of profundity.
Thank you.
No, I don't know why anybody's surprised. I mean, it's pretty much established lore at this point that he's the son of Fidel Castro. I mean, he's just like Daddy,
Yeah,
just like Daddy. Except he's a lot less masculine because Fidel was a pretty masculine dude.
that's
But
true.
yeah, he doesn't have any of the Latin masculinity, the machismo as it's called, but he has all of the psychosis. So there's that. He's got a
Yeah,
lot of that.
yeah, yeah. But it's weird though. I mean, the Ottoman, is that how you say it? Or, I guess I'll just go with it. The Ottoman police are straight up lying, even though there's video evidence. They're just straight up lying. Um, you don't think there's anyone there with a little more, couple more brain cells that might say, "Ooh, maybe we should take a different tactic"?
You would think, but I think it's just nice to see. Uh, you know, Hopefully the Canadian people and the rest of the Western world is watching, and they are by and large, and they're realizing that you're not going to frolic your way out of what Trudeau like people are doing.
Hmm.
They're going to quadruple down. They're never going to give up. The
Oh yeah,
only way to get out of it is to force your way out of it. Now, you can do that with a mass showing of support, so it completely delegitimizes anything he does, but they haven't had that. The only other way to do it is force.
yeah.
And I think Canada is dangerously close to the point of no return where
Oh
it's
yeah,
going to be a bloodbath. Someone's going to a whole lot of someone's is going to have to get killed.
yeah.
And Trudeau, Canada doesn't have the military and the apparatuses, the security apparatuses that America does. Trudeau's not as safe as he
Yeah,
thinks he is.
sounds
So
like yeah.
I hope he thinks this through. Let's put
Sounds
it that way.
sounds like Biden he's offering at least moral support, which isn't really a great idea. But whatever. Aside from that, we're keep it to Canada. I have to say one thing about these truckers though, and it doesn't matter whether you agree with them or not. It doesn't matter. The one thing I can say is those people are brave. They have faced the brutal winter of Canada and and the cold of it, and they have faced these very thuggish tactics by the Ottoman police, and they've done it peacefully. And even in the face of being shot at with rubber bullets and horses come through, they're still holding their hands up with those stupid heart things, which I hate, but whatever. But it's they are brave though. You got to give them that. You got to give them that because they're
Yep.
standing. That is what you call peaceful resistance. 100%. Very similar to what Martin Luther was doing back on the bridge and various other places. Peacefully resist. Yeah, they'll drag us away, but do not strike back. And it's working in their favor because they look better and better every day. So, that's one thing I have to say is I commend their bravery on that because that takes a lot more bravery to stand up and take a stick to the face than it does to start swinging fists, right?
I guess.
In that
The
setting.
problem is, like I just said, you're not going to peacefully get your way out of what
Yeah,
Trudeau's
I
becoming.
know you want war, Thundero. I get
I
it.
don't want it, but they do, clearly, because he won't back down no matter what. He has thousands, hundreds of thousands of Canadians now all over the country. Mass protests broke out all weekend, demanding that they just stop. That's it. They're not demanding anything else. Just stop what you're doing. That's it. Do
Yeah,
the other thing. Don't do what you're doing. Right? They're not demanding that Trudeau do this thing or that thing or whatever. Just don't do what you're trying to do.
yeah.
Just stop.
Well, they the whole time they've been asking, just sit down and have a conversation with us. And he's
Yeah,
done
just
it
talk.
before. He's sat down with people before. I mean, they said, and then I saw this news reporter. I think it was on. I don't know where it was. One of the channels, NBC maybe, saying is, well, why should they? Do you expect an American president to sit down and talk to people? And it's like, well,
Yeah,
yeah, they've all done it. Everybody's done it.
Yeah.
Biden hasn't yet, but
Well, even Trump did it.
Trump
Trump
did
went
it.
and he invited all sorts of people
He
to talk to him.
talked
Now, a
to
lot of them said no,
he
but he
talked
still
to
did
gangbangers from
try.
Chicago, dude.
Yeah.
He did. Obama's did it. Clinton's done it. Bush did it. Reagan did it. I mean, shit. Carter probably did it. I
And are
mean,
we
it's
going to
pretty
honestly
normal,
sit here and
actually.
pretend that the Prime Minister of Canada is anywhere near the level of the President of the United States?
Well, no, but I mean, it's their country. We're talking about what's going on in Canada, right?
Hmm.
And but I just was responding to. I've heard it wasn't just that one reporter. It's how they kind of they're in lockstep with whatever side you're on. They're always in lockstep with their communications.
Yeah.
And this would you expect the American president to sit down? Yes, I would,
Yeah.
and they have. So
Literally, the very first president in the country used to do it.
oh yeah, well,
Like,
George did a lot of that actually. Hey
yeah.
Ben, what's up? You're muted, brother.
He's a quiet
He's
man. Quiet
protesting.
man.
Maybe.
Sorry,
Oh!
Oh my God! What the hell happened?
What was that?
I think he's at the trucker convoy in Ottawa. That sounded like a truck going off, dude. Oh my God! Jesus! Whew.
Oh, that was
That
amazing.
was
But
awesome.
no, I think I've been very adamant that we're not going to piece our way or vote our way out of the situation that's been coming for a while, and I think Canada is just reinforcing that, and it's a shame because I don't. That's not what I want. But let's be very clear. That's not what I'm after. I'm trying to avoid it because if it kicks off in earnest, it's going to be a bloodbath all over the West in a way
It'll
that
be
we
bad.
haven't
Yeah,
seen
we
since
don't want that.
World War II. Um, so I'm trying to avoid that. So all of these, conversations and this and that, where I talk about national divorce, things like that, that is a way to avoid conflict as much as possible.
Sure.
What Trudeau has done, is completely authoritarian. I don't know how anybody could support it. I think it's way beyond the scope and the pale of anything Canadians should be in support of. Um, and he, honestly, I'm not a Canadian, obviously, but I think he needs to go. Period. He needs
Well,
to go,
yeah.
and he needs to be tried for abuse of power. Period.
Well,
No
keep in
questions
mind
asked.
that a lot of the people in the Canadian Parliament agree 100% with you, and there's been
Okay.
a lot of noise going up in regards to this. And I am the optimist. I don't think things have to come to full on violence at all. Matter of fact, one of the things I think I've noticed over the past, I don't know, 6 months to a year, is the normal people in the middle, which is the majority of us, whether they lean a little right or a little left, have been having conversations, and we see more and more of the actual liberals starting to speak up, speak their mind. Because keep in mind, a lot of this insanity is coming out of progressives. They're not actual liberals. They're something different. They're socialists, right? And I don't want to get in. It's for me. It's not even political, but it's more of a power grab is really what we're looking at here. And here in America, or excuse me, over there in America, there's a lot of people that want to kind of do the same thing the truckers did, a peaceful protest with the trucks, and they're already gearing up, and which kind of brings us to another conversation. Before we get into the main thing, I hope Ben comes back because I'm sure he has good opinions on this actually. But keep in mind another thing that the Canadian, Trudeau did with his little lieutenant governor there, or whatever she's called, that lady who was nothing before. She's like a reporter now. All of a sudden, has huge governmental authority. They're basically cracking down on crypto guys. And in that we got support from the Biden administration showing that they're also going to be cracking down on crypto
Of course.
strongly. And of course, I said this years ago. I said, dude, there's no way in the world they're going to let you keep that. When that stuff starts
Mhm.
creeping up into the billions, they're going to shut you down. Bankers run this planet, dude. They're not going to let you get in on their monopoly, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
what are you thinking? I mean, let's do a simple little historical education here for the Americans. We have a thing called the Federal Reserve System, right? It is not federal. There is no reserve, and it's not a system. It's actually a banking cartel, is what it
Yes.
is. right?
Effectively, yeah.
And yeah, a privately owned banking cartel. And they in no way are you going to let you bust in on their monopoly because they got a pure monopoly on money, buddy. Not even
Yeah.
do they have a monopoly. A private company can put you in jail for not following their system. Right? That's the reality of which you live in. And there's no way crypto's going to be allowed to survive. Now, I've seen a bunch of these crypto guys come up and say, oh, well, yeah, well, you can't get into exchange places, but you can hold it. And that's the beauty of the crypto. You can control it outside. It's like, okay, yeah, fine. What are you going to do with those your useless little digital numbers if you can't go to any exchange whatsoever because they shut them all down? What's the point? Now, I said this before to a lot of you guys. I know a lot of you guys are in NFTs over here because of all the artists we have contact with, and that's cool. But I told you guys, get in, get your money, and get out
Yeah.
because this is coming down like a house of bricks, dude. It's coming down hard because the Canada's already doing it. The United States already has processes in place, and they're going to launch them. Who knows? Today, tomorrow, next week? I don't know.
Yeah.
But if you're into crypto, get out of it.
A very smart I say friend, but person I follow on the internet, let's put it that way, said a long time ago that all this stuff is, all this Bitcoin, all of it is, and the reason why it's promulgated and allowed to exist, basically, is because all you're doing is you're doing the market research for the government digital currency that's going to come eventually, the
Hmm.
digital dollar, whatever they call it. And I think that's correct because one, the premises of crypto, meaning a digital currency, that's obviously where the world's heading, right? I mean, it just makes sense. If we're going to keep being so connected with the internet, that's where money's going. So, well, it would cost a lot of money and time and effort to do market research, to do testing, to do actual research on the technology and things in the public sector, right? For the government to do it. Well, they don't have to. Crypto's been doing it for 10 years now
Right.
for them. So now all they have to do is come in and co-opt and shut down all competition, like they did with the American dollar 100 years ago. By
Yeah.
the way,
Yeah.
and then there you
1913,
go.
by the way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there you go. Now you
Um.
have an American, whatever it's called, the crypto dollar, whatever they call it,
Right. Right.
and boom.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well, I mean,
That I think that's the ultimate goal here. I think that's what they're allowing, and I think we're just seeing the first steps of them starting to come in and corral everything into a system that they
well,
have
I,
full
I
control
I don't know
over.
how much forethought was put into that, but maybe. But I mean, I don't mind the idea of it. I think it's a good idea. If you lived in an actual free economic system, but you don't, right?
Right.
Because you got to understand, when these guys threw in the Federal Reserve Bank, their whole you got to understand who came together. At the time, there were seven guys who went down to Jekyll Island, and they had like they owned it, and they had this beautiful, rich people resort. And these seven dudes sat around a table and they made a decision. Now, these guys have been beating each other's skulls in for years, right? Years trying to beat each other. And they realized they couldn't. So, therefore, they came together and make a cartel so that they could enhance their profits. So I get it. A lot of cartels have been created that way. That's how I
Yeah.
get it, right? But one of the big problems they had, and JP Morgan would say it openly in public all the time, by the way, that competition is not a good thing. It's horrible for them, right? Because one of the reasons why America had risen up so quickly and become a world power out of nowhere, right? Out of nowhere was because we had operating in the country through the 19th century a actual free market, and it just lifted this country up incredibly fast, right? And this, of course, also made them, although these guys you're talking about international players here, but they didn't want the competition. And when they put in the Federal Reserve Bank, that whole system was to quell the free market and get rid of the competition. That was the point of these mega bankers, right? And you've been living under that this whole time. I understand the idea of crypto. If it were a free market system, fine, but it isn't. And there's no way they're going to let you keep that long term. There's no way. And therefore, we're seeing the beginning of the end of it. So I know a lot of you guys are involved in this, and it's cool, but get your money out. Get your money out and be happy with whatever gains you got. Now, I'd love to hear from Ben because he's an actual techie.
Yeah. So, I don't. I've talked to you and Thundaro off stream about my background, so you guys are well aware. I don't like to put it out in the public and stuff, but I'm about as high level and deep into the techie world as you can get. And I have not invested a single penny into crypto. It's been a scam since day one, and those of us who are kind of deep into the tech field knew that it was a scam. There's actually no legitimate way that it can be used as a real currency due to the infrastructure involved and the need to verify it against like all the disassociated ledgers that are out there and such, and there's no central authority. That also means that there's no logging complaints to get money back for like identity theft and stuff like that. That's actually like the huge problem now. That's the bottom you're talking about falling out from under it.
Right.
With some of the hacking attempts and stuff like that. So I actually disagree with you, Thundara, that I don't think that this is an experiment to be used for any type of currency because it's a terrible currency. Like there's no way that this could actually be legitimately used as a currency. The fact that it takes hours to like legitimize any transaction, whereas in that same time thousands or tens of thousands of digital transactions take place already with central banks and stuff. So all this was just designed to be sort of a 20th century version of like pet rocks or something, right? It was just
Particularly the
designed
NFTs. Yeah.
yeah, it was just designed to finagle people, and to generate some false sense of uniqueness that didn't actually exist, and to because it always it favors the early adopters, right? And anything that is a scam, you can tell it's a scam because it relies on FOMO, fear of missing out, in that the early adopters are the ones who get the most benefit of it, and it's really like
Mhm.
feeding off of the fear of others who jump into it that prop up the profits of the early adopters, right?
Right.
There's
Well,
there's no substance to it.
that's true, and with the NFT, the more recent NFT thing I've seen that's very interesting, because it's over here in this gray area. What they were doing was pushing a speculative market, right? I mean, these are useless pieces of digital information that they don't care what the information is. They're just using it to push up the market, the through speculation, and that's illegal in real money.
Right. And so like NFTs are constantly reliant on pump and dump schemes, right? And it's happening constantly, right? But it's not as regulated as it is. And don't get me wrong, if we want to like wax philosophic about how corrupt like the actual like stock market is and Wall Street and stuff, I'm more than happy to dig on them as well. I have my own criticisms of how that whole thing operates. But it is Wild West here with NFTs, and there's a group of people who like that because they know that there's money to be made off of people who don't fundamentally understand how this technology works and why it's awful and why it is non like trend. It's a technology that is really only designed to stop one specific type of hacking attempt, and that is like in transit hacking, of which there is very few actual real life examples of that happening. Most hacking is done through spoofing or social engineering. And so it generated a concern of which there wasn't really a concern in with for like the large tech industry, and that is really the only quote unquote problem it's trying to solve, and it addresses no other problems that it suffers from, right?
Yeah.
So for instance, like if my identity gets stolen and somebody rings up money on my credit card, I can go to the bank and get that money back. It's insured and stuff like that. And
I've done it.
but yeah, but if something happens to not just like your NFTs, your tokens or what have you, like there's no getting that back. There's no central authority by the nature of the decentralized platform. But not only that, people can like as part of your transactional data, because it's an open ledger, if they find out your wallet, like they can just like force transactions through you that you never made and take stuff. It happens all the time,
Yeah.
right? So like this is literally the worst type of currency. We might as well be going back to seashells rather than this.
Hey, now, I've seen some pretty seashells.
Well, that's my point.
Yeah.
I would, if I advise people, if you want to get into crypto, okay, do it, but understand what you're doing, right? Know that basically all you're doing, and I would recommend getting one of the newer ones, and the only reason is because they're cheaper. So if for some reason it rides a wave, right, like Ethereum did for a while, you might be able to make some money. Not a lot, but you might be able to make some money. But
Yeah.
understand that that's what you're doing. This
Well,
isn't going to be some like great thing, investment 50 years from now type situation. If it's just a gamble, then understand that you're gambling.
Yeah.
And that's
Well,
okay. People are allowed to
yes.
gamble.
We've
But
seen some
just people
people.
need to understand what they're doing. Some people have made great fortunes with it, but
Sure.
like he was saying, most of those were early adopters. They've had them for 10 years or whatever, and they just rode the wave. But eventually, regulation is going to come into this market because there's just too much money.
Oh
They're
yeah,
not
no,
going to
that's
allow
true.
it to roam free forever. So the higher it gets, the more chance it has of having the steps, the ladder, whatever you want to call it, kicked out from under it. Um, I honestly think if you're looking for an investment that's relatively safe comparatively from the
Microsoft,
greedy hands of the government, right, of
J.P.
their
Morgan
people,
Chase,
gold, silver,
gold.
just the old classics. Stick to things that are material, that you can move around personally, that you can secure personally. Nothing is 100% safe or secure, and tomorrow the government could do another gold seizure. I doubt they're going to, but it's happened before.
Yeah, it has.
Uh, so nothing is completely 100% secure, and if anybody tells you that this will make things 100% secure forever, they're lying to you because that's nonsense. That's nonsense talk.
Well,
Nothing is.
and there have been people in this community that have made money off NFTs, and great,
Oh
awesome.
yeah, yeah,
And that's cool, good for them. But I mean, I'm just saying, boy, the writing's on the wall, man.
yeah.
Yeah, understand what you're getting into. Don't look at NFTs as like some type of like a retirement investment. Don't, like that's an absolutely ridiculous thing. I don't even know if I would call it like gambling per se, right? You're riding the wave of a scam, right?
Yep.
Not that you necessarily are scamming somebody yourself, but it is a scam and it is designed to be very pyramid scheme esque, right?
Hmm.
And to that and that if you want to ride that, that's fine, but just do it in a very controlled, sensible fashion. Don't put too much money into it, right? Just be very cognizant of like what this is, and it is designed to be a digital scam in that regards.
Ben,
You know, like going to a casino and expecting, to walk out with all the casino's money.
Yeah,
No,
yeah,
no,
yeah,
no.
yeah,
The
yeah.
house always
Well,
wins.
that's true. Although, Ben, would you like to speculate who the people at the top of all this crypto stuff is? Wink, wink. Speculate.
I think we have pretty good implications that it involves a lot of the same elements that were around the 2008 crash, right? In that, all right, so crypto really came from the original like versions of crypto, and like what ended up being NFTs was from some like tech demo stuff where they worked up code to generate scarcity in these non-fungible, we're basically just hexadecimals, and how you're able to like basically mine them, which is just computers solving increasingly complex algorithms, right? And so as a lot of tech is, it's nerds going, like, hey, look, we can do something kind of cool, and then there's another element saying, okay, that's cool, what can we use that to make money with, right?
Hmm.
And then if we really get into the nuts and bolts of it, of who's been backing a lot of this stuff, it's a lot of the same elements of the mortgage crisis, right? They found a new thing in which to force again another type of scarcity and another type of, I mean, because that's what the housing market is, right? We've had trouble with the housing market because so much of the housing market is speculative investment. The banks and other market elements buying up houses to create speculative scarcity that they think will drive up prices, in which normal homeowners will then try to come in and buy and find that it's a non-tangible market, right?
Right.
That doesn't actually mean that like there's that much housing needed. There's just too many um negative elements in the market buying them up, creating false scarcity to drive up prices, right?
Right.
And that's a lot of the same problems that we have with this technology, that it's trying to create a sense of scarcity that doesn't actually exist for these digital elements, right?
Yeah.
So
Well,
that's my foil hat on how this stuff is going.
I always thought it was the same Wall Street people. I always figured it was Wall Street people that were behind it. They might not have been the initial creators, but they're the ones that got behind it, pushed it
Yeah.
for their own purposes. I never thought this was any kind of Wild West cool hacker thing, anonymous or whatever the hell that is. I always thought it was straight up Wall Street. It
And
just
then at the end of
smelled
the
like
day,
it.
it's not really good code, right? I mean, they've already figured out how to like crack the tokens. They can extract data out of them. They're not like secure in that regards. They're not like hyper encrypted or anything like that, right? So, I mean, and all it is like it's like a database that has like add only to it, right?
Mhm.
Like, like a SQL database that doesn't allow for override of existing technology, existing entries, only add to ledger ending. Like none of the like from a tech perspective, like none of this is like shockingly unique or amazingly revolutionary,
Right.
right?
You know
And
what would
so,
you know what would be hilarious, guys? If it was Russia that started it. I would laugh for a freaking week.
I mean, that leads into a whole different conversation. So
I know it
don't get me
does.
started on that stuff.
No, no,
So
no. But I'm just saying that would make me laugh, though. I get a kick out of that.
yeah,
But anyway. Let's get into today's news. You guys ready?
sure.
All
Yeah.
right, all right. Here we go. We're going to share this screen, and we're going to get into some very, very important matters today. You guys better put your serious face on because it's about to get serious here. You ready? Okay. Here we go. Boom. All right.
Finland skier suffers frozen penis in Olympics mass start race.
Pepe, run! It's so sad what happened with Pepe. My wife really loved Pepe. She thought he was super cute, and then he became the enemy of the state. Oh well, you just get away, Pepe, get away. Uh, uh, but I mean, damn, dude, it's that sucks badly, dude, badly. Yeah. I actually watched the female version of this, and it was brutally cold, lots of wind, and it was 30 kilometers for the ladies. And then the men came after in the freaking dark, did it in colder temperatures for 50 kilometers. Oh my
Yeesh.
God. That's just masochistic, dude. Just masochistic. Uh, yeah. But old Russia, yeah, they took the lead in the men, and then I think it was Norway and America got a silver. Other than this poor frozen penis, I did want to talk about the Olympics for half a second, if I might. Now I know you guys probably no one here is bothered to watch it, but we've watched some over here, and my wife. I like the Olympics too, although I don't know. Well, IOC is corrupt. I mean, that's just the end of the conversation, I guess. But nevertheless, we did watch some over here, and I want to. And there was some interesting thing. There was some clear cheating and some clear nonsense, but there's always controversy, especially with that short track stuff. They need to change the rules on that. But it was a very meh Olympics. However, the closing ceremony was pure 100% Disney. It was so saccharinely sweet that old Mickey is rising from his unmarked grave with full blown freaking diabetes, dude. I mean, my God, it was incredibly saccharine. I was offended. My brain was offended. Did anybody watch it? It was just me, right?
Yeah, I didn't watch it.
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah, yeah.
mean, for work related reasons, I've had to watch some of it. But uh, yeah, but I mean, isn't that just kind of the nature of the Olympics in general? Like, it's one of the reasons they're also like pacifying it and like trying to give people like warnings, like let's not get political, like watch what you're doing, like don't make statements, like this is a out of time for that and stuff, right? So
Well,
there's always been an attempt to, you
yeah,
know,
well, that is true, though. The whole point that is true statement. I mean, the whole point in the Olympics is for us to all come together in the inspiration of sport and peace. That is the point, right? So I don't disagree with that at all. The whole political thing with China, leave that for other times. Of course, China can't leave it out of it, but nevertheless, that's not really. I wasn't really getting to the political side of it. I was just. I mean, of course, the Olympics or anything international is very Disney-esque. Happy, smiley, family entertainment. I get that, but whew, dude, it was deep, 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 deep diabetes. Really, it was bad,
Deep diabetes.
deep.
It was so sweet it shut off your insulin, huh? Is
It
that what you're
did,
telling
dude.
me?
It did. It did. But anyway, I just thought it was interesting that this was put up by Somley and the poor Finnish skier and his penis. Hopefully they saved it. He might need that in the future.
Well, I hear it's frozen, so it should be well preserved.
I don't think things work well after that.
No,
Being frozen.
no, there's a little bit of a trouble with cell degradation and stuff, but we won't get into the biology of it because it'll be quite a disgusting conversation. But Pepe, run! That's all I got to say. But this Olympics not good. A lot of people weren't watching it. I have to, I don't want to get political about it, but the one thing I have to say that was a bit shocking to me, America performed horribly. It was abysmal, dude. I don't understand how in the hell America has fallen so far in regards to athletic endeavor. My God, dude, we were getting our ass kicked all over the place. Anybody? You guys are in the States. I'm not in the States. I'm over here in Japan. So I don't
Have
know
you
what the hell's
seen
going on, dude.
any of the rigmarole around some of these athletes, quote unquote, and how they get attention for themselves on a regular basis? Not all of them,
No, I don't.
but enough of them, and they end up, sucking apparently because America kind of sucked. Yeah, it's. I think it has a lot to do with many things, including the rest of the world's coming up in a lot of ways, but also the American people. We're just a very broken people right now. Especially, we have been for a while, and it's starting to show. The
Yeah,
rot is starting to show. The stink.
yeah,
I
I
would
get
completely.
the TikTok donuts, but I mean, honestly, we've always had them. I mean, that's not a new thing.
There's a
I
lot
mean,
more of them than there's a lot more of them than I think you realize. Just
Uh, it's my opinion is it's the Winter Olympics, so who gives a fuck? Like, I'm sorry.
Mr. German.
Like, I don't, and my people did well. They're
The
second there.
Germans are saying, "Oh, thank you very much for your allegiance switch."
Right. I mean, it worked for that one chick. Whatever. But I mean, always like in a kind of dumb mental gymnastics way. The Winter Olympics, I've always just like, huh? Like, I always just consider I guess, do you call them I just call them the Olympics, but I guess that they're the Summer Olympics. I don't know. Like, I don't put that much stock into the Winter Olympics. It always just seems like a little silly, I guess, to me. Um, but I don't care. Like, I'm more interested to see how we do in the normal Olympics than I don't put much stock into the Winter Olympics.
Do you
I'm
know
sorry.
that the ski was invented in Russia more than 12,000 years ago, sir?
Cool. Okay. I don't care. I
It's
just really don't care.
what I mean is it's many times older than the Greek Olympics.
Okay. I'm still saying I don't care.
Okay, fine.
but it's
Fine for
not
that.
older than wrestling, Chester.
Nothing
It's not.
is. Nothing is.
That's
Yeah,
right.
or prostitution. That's kind of probably holds to the record, I'm pretty sure.
Listen, they need to add that as an event, and I think more
Yeah.
people would watch.
Well, we got fucking curling, so what do you want?
We have so many more events in the normal Olympics, right?
Yeah,
And
it's true.
and and we really have to like invent things to do in the winter, like curling, dude. Come on.
It is bad.
I've,
But
I've
see,
done curling. It's
the
awful.
thing is, we who whites, we're not really good at a lot of those Olympic sports, which is great. America is a melting pot, so we don't need to be. But the Winter Olympics is a place for our people to shine, Ben,
We're good at powerlifting and shooting.
and
We're real
skiing,
good at those, and
snowy
wrestling.
stuff.
Pretty good wrestlers. Yeah, but that's about it. We're not the best runners, the old white people. We're not. Don't ask us to run, all right? We're not going to do that. We're going to get on a horse.
No.
We're pretty good at that too, riding
It's like
horses.
just inventing a lot of things to do in the snow and calling it Olympic sport.
Yes, exactly.
So it's my same criticism of swimming. They have too many events, just too many. That's why Michael Phelps has more medals than anyone else because there's like 1,000 different swimming events and he
Yeah, but
competes in all.
he was badass though.
I mean, he was.
He
Don't get me
was.
wrong. I'm not taking anything away from him, but it's easy to have the most medals when you compete in an event that has like 10, or you compete in something that has 10 different events. And the guy doing like the powerlifting only has one event he can ever do any given like Olympics, right? So there's a statistical advantage on Michael's side, right? And that's kind of how I feel about the Winter Olympics, that we've invented a lot of additional things to do for this time period.
Yeah, no, I get it. I've always kind of liked the Winter Olympics, but I come from a winter wonderland, so you know. But nevertheless, it's over now, and I know most people in the world read it and watch it. It's got some of the lowest viewerships ever. The Winter Olympics always has less than the summer anyway. Yeah, so it's kind of a bit of a failure. It's unfortunate, but I do pray for Mr. Finland. I do. Quick recovery, sir. Hopefully the misses will be okay because this is a cross country thing, and these people tend to be older. So hopefully you already had your kids. But anyway, let's move on to this now. Ben and I here is kind of handy to have Ben because Ben also speaks Japanese, and I think you'll like this one, Ben. Go ahead. Go ahead, Thunder.
Pro Tekken player Tanukana dropped from esports team after saying, quote, "Short men don't have human rights."
All right. Now, I saw now Somali put this up. I think it was Somali, right? Or maybe it was Adrian. But someone put this up in the Discord, and there was a lot of things going on. It seemed people who kind of were in love with her for her harshness and stuff. I actually went and listened to it. And Ben, have a listen to this with me, will you? Let's translate this for the folks.
Oh my god, my Japanese is horrible, dude.
ダメですね。170ないと正直人権ないんで、170センチない方は、俺って人権ないんだと思いながら生きていってください。骨延長の手術を検討してください。骨延長手術で調べてください。170あったら人権がちゃんと生まれてくるんで、骨延長でよろしくお願いします。言うよ。お前ちっちゃい男に人権あるわけないだろお前。
Oh, she's a bitch. All right. Yeah.
Anyone under 170 centimeters or something?
No,
or?
she says 170 was her minimum. No, this girl. First of all, this girl is talking like a chimpida. A chimpida over here is a street thug, a gangster, a punk, right? She's talking like a chimpida, like she's some street thug and she's some little gamer girl. So I don't know what the hell she's doing in that regard. But she's being very rough with her language. Yeah, if you're a short dude, fuck off. Pretty much. She thinks you should just
I
die.
agree, but probably for different reasons. You can't trust them short guys, man. They're shifty. They're under eyesight, so you got to look down at them.
I know. But she's being pretty harsh, dude. She's being pretty harsh, and but of course, so she's a nasty piece of work. This is not a nice girl. There's nothing nice about the girl. I'm telling you guys. You just listen to the way she's speaking. This is a nasty piece of work. Okay, so. Other than that, the greater conversation that comes out of this is, however, is this. She said some pretty nasty stuff. Does that mean she should get fired from her position on the Tenkin team? Right? And this has been going back and forth for years. We've been talking about this because me personally, I don't think your personal verbalized opinion should cost you your job. I personally think that. Other people think differently. But that's the point. She lost her position on the Tenkin team, which she must have been good. Let's not bullshit it. There's no way I mean, I understand that we kind of get this required count that has to have a certain amount of this or that and things these days. I get that. But nevertheless, she must be good at it. She can't be horrible, right?
Right.
So you have a legitimate player here that has been kicked off of the team. Losing that quota that they really want to have because they really want to have females involved because she said some nasty stuff about short dudes and it was nasty. Fair enough. Any opinion?
I agree with you, except I would make two caveats. One, we're already in that world now. We've been in it for a long time, so what's good for the goose is good for the gander. If a guy had said something like that about short women, he would have definitely been kicked off that team. No question.
Well, it would have been about tall women, not short women.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying, though. Fat women, right? Like fat women shouldn't have human rights, something like that. So what's good for the goose is good for the gander. If she, I don't like I said, personally, I want to live in the world where people can speak their mind with very little consequence to their livelihood. Strictly because you can't really say you have free speech if when you say something that somebody finds offensive, you can lose your entire livelihood. Now, I'm sure this girl's probably fine, but I know people personally who have lost very well-paying jobs because
Yeah.
they said completely innocuous things, but
Yeah, well,
somebody
this
was
is not
offended.
innocuous though. She's
Yes.
clearly a bitch. I mean, this is not
But
innocuous.
the other thing is I only apply that caveat of people should be able to say whatever they want if it's a private conversation. This is not a private conversation. She was streaming this to thousands of people.
She was.
You're kind of making your organization look bad.
Yeah,
So
that's fair point. It is fair point.
you can't be doing that in public. Now, what happens in private, I think that should be completely sacred. I don't care what somebody says in private, as long as they're not out here in public living whatever they said. I don't care if it's the most vile shit in the world, as long as they're not living it or not attempting to live it or projecting it into the reality from a public platform, which is what she was on. Then I personally just do not care, and I don't think there's even a reasonable argument that person should be punished, other than they made you feel some kind of way, so you want to get it back at them.
Yeah.
It always comes off as like a revenge thing, and I don't think we want to live in a quote unquote society that's based around revenge. That doesn't seem stable to me.
Yeah, and we've seen a lot of that. What do you think on this, Ben?
So, this is one of those situations where we are kind of butting up against two different rights, and
Yeah.
her right to say stuff, but also the right of like whoever's employing her to be associated with that. Like you said, she made a tactical error in saying, I am going to rep myself and present myself in such a fashion. There's nothing forcing you to do that, right? There's nothing, and we as human beings should be, I don't know, relatively cognizant of like if and when we have a shitty opinion. Now, are you allowed to have a shitty opinion? Sure, right? And are you allowed to voice a shitty opinion with like your close friends? Like, sure, right? But as Thundara said, like she made a cognizant choice to go publicly spew a shitty opinion, and then I think her company or whoever she's with like has the right to like not want that associated with them.
Mm.
And so
Yeah, and I'm reading her apologies here. She came up with some apologies.
good, and that's fine. But you know, I get what Thundaro's saying is that we don't want people to be punished, but I think the companies have a right to say like, hey, somebody has represented themselves in a certain fashion that we don't agree with, and we don't want people to think of that specific opinion when they think of us as that person is associated and employed by us. So we're making a decision to let them go, not as a source of punishment, but because that opinion doesn't represent our values, right? And so, and I mean, ultimately, for me, this is the ultimate, form of feminism of equal treatment. I think it would be much worse if she didn't get fired, right? Because then she would be treated in a way that men who do the same thing aren't treated, right?
Right.
And so I think this is just proving that this form of, I don't even want to call it cancellation, I think it's more like accountability in this regards, is equally applicable to men and women.
It should be. Yeah. No, I get your point. I understand 100%. And if she had said something offhand like, "Yeah, I don't like short men," and then this happened, I would be protesting harshly. But I watched her. I watched it, dude. That's a nasty girl. She's
Well, I
not
came across
nice, dude.
yeah. I mean, like I said, my Japanese is very rusty, but even then, from what I caught, I was like, ooh, that is right. If she had just said, you know what, I date taller guys, right? Like that's, I think, completely fine, right? You're
Sure.
allowed to have preferences and stuff
Yeah.
like that. But she took it in a much deeper fashion, in a much more caustic fashion. And like I said, you're answerable to that. You're answerable to your
Yeah.
opinions at a certain point when you post them so publicly,
Yeah.
right?
And she said other things too. And
Yeah.
and this this Twitterite is pointing them out. Of course, the first one was shortness. Two, women no bigger than A cup should consider suicide. She's being edgelordy at a minimum here. I think she's just a dumbass girl. That's what I think she is.
I think she's just young and stupid.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
this thing a lot of young people suffer from is being
Yeah.
stupid.
And and some people like A cups.
Well, I think some people like vagina, and they'll tell women with A cups they don't care. But I've only known, literally in my life, I've only met one group of people, and they were the same family who liked small breasts and thought big breasts were gross.
I like
They're the only
medium
men I've ever known
breasts.
like that. But I think the vast majority of men like them some booby, like them
Yeah,
some booba.
I get that. I like medium athletic breasts. Ben here is into the very large ones.
I'm
Yeah.
an equal opportunity. Anything that floats my boat.
Okay. Let's see. Women older than 30 have rotten amniotic fluids. God, men living with their parents
Jeez.
aren't human. Fair enough. Bald people are bald because they were evil in past lives. Alrighty. LGBT. This is one that I thought would pop off. People are a group of mentally ill. Okay. Depressed people in blacks. Okay, can be cured if they stop being so selfish. Ooh. The
What does that
yes.
even mean?
I don't know. I don't want to know. Let's not touch that. Moving on, number 8. Theory of sexual uniqueness is way too dangerous. All Korean gamers are gay. Well, that is true though.
Yep.
That's fact check true. And number 10, antis, whatever that is, with low income, should hurry up and commit suicide. What's an antis? Anybody help
I
me
think
out?
it's, I think it's
Don't know.
antes or
Yeah,
something.
I'm assuming it's anti.
I would say like the one thing that she's got going for
Uh-huh.
is that she is equal opportunity,
Hater.
racist,
Yep.
sexist, and just everything, right? So
Yeah.
like it's hard to like pin her into one corner. She's just awful, like it completely all around 360 degrees. So
She's just decided she's going to be the Asian female Andrew Dice Clay
I guess.
and just hit everybody. Just
Yeah,
start firing.
but Andrew was funny though.
Andrew was funny.
Yeah.
She probably is decently funny when she's
No,
not.
she's
I don't
not
know.
funny at all,
I
dude.
don't speak Japanese, so I don't know.
No, she's not. She's just a stupid kid. Yeah. But whatever. Thank you, Somali. I would have never found this article without you. It is funny though. But turnaround's fair play, I guess, because other people say very innocuous things and get kicked off of stuff all the time.
Yeah.
And
Chester, I got kicked off of Facebook permanently for saying women shouldn't run the world. I didn't call women names. I didn't say anything like negative. I just said they should not run the world. That's it. And Facebook kicked me and my wife off permanently, forever. We can never make a Facebook again.
Aw. Are you really upset about that though?
No, I just
No.
think the standards are ridiculous. And like Ben said, if a man had said anything like this, he would have had the same consequences. So if we're gonna good for the goose, good for the gander, we have to have reciprocity.
that was,
Have to.
that was before Chet showed me the whole thing, though. Seeing everything that she'd actually said, I'm pretty sure the dude would have been torched.
Oh, harshly,
Yes.
harshly, dude.
He would have been dragged to the
Harshly.
town center and set on fire. So
Yeah. But I mean, oh well. I am a proponent of free speech, though. I really think it's important. But I get it. The company has rights too. That's a fair point. It is fair point.
That's a whole other conversation on whether companies should have rights. But yeah, we'll get into that a different day.
Yeah. Although I would say women shouldn't rule the world. It depends on the woman, I would think. But that gets into the old
All
argument
right, fine.
the
Only big
the
boob
serpent
women should
versus
rule
the
the world.
eagle. The serpent versus the eagle. Now that's a deep dive. I wonder if anybody in here has the lore necessary to get that reference. Okay.
Serpent versus the eagle.
Yes.
Which one's the serpent?
Well, do you really want me to get into a deep anthropological
No, I
conversation?
forget I asked that question.
Okay. Moving on here, but I think the general consensus, if we all agree, dumbass chick.
Yeah.
Okay, dumbass. She's an absolute
Like,
dumbass.
just read the room, sweetheart. What are you doing?
Yeah.
Alrighty, here we go. Here's the fun stuff. After calling Lord of the Rings fans racist, hey, he found a comma. Good job, Trent. I'm proud of you. Woke, the Lord of the Rings fan site, claims to be safe haven for debate.
Okay.
Which fan site was that?
And connected. Well, that's the main one that's been hijacked by non-Tolkien fans. And also this one. These are both tied together here.
I'm not even trying that nonsense Polish name. Marvel Comics Arter Bill S. That's what he's getting. Not happy with forced corporate diversity changes in Prime Video's The Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power. Which I still say the most egregious part of this whole thing is that name is stupid. It's
Bill
terrible.
Sienkiewicz.
It's terrible alliteration. I don't like it.
That's fair. The Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power. Bill Sienkiewicz is a very famous artist. Yes.
That's what that says. Yeah.
He is Very, 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 very good artist. Actually, he's
Yeah.
top notch.
Well, I know
However,
who he is. I'm just not going to butcher that nonsense word. That's nonsense language, Polish. It's
okay,
nonsense, and I'm not
right,
going to do it.
right. Go. All Polish people should die. Write that down.
No, I didn't say that.
All
They
right.
should just speak
Uh,
English like everybody else.
All right,
That's it.
fine. But Bill here, the problem is, I don't disagree with what Bill is saying in this situation. He's like, quit messing with Tolkien, don't rewrite stuff, yada yada. We're going to get in this
Yeah.
conversation. That's why I put two headlines up here. But keep in mind, this guy has been blasting anyone slightly affiliated with Comicsgate for years, right?
Yeah.
Blasting them, and of course, now I understand there are elements in Comicsgate that are absolutely foul. Would you disagree,
Oh,
Thundero?
oh no, I've
No.
battled them myself.
Yes. In all honesty, we would be part of Comicsgate. We are ultimately, at least ideologically. We believe in promoting indie stuff. If Marvel and DC won't create what we want, fine. It's their company. They do whatever they want to do. So we'll do it ourselves. That's the whole point of Comicsgate. It's to
Well, it
promote
was.
indie comic. It was, and it still is
Yeah.
for many of us, right? That's what Comicsgate was. And there are some people who've hijacked it or done some inappropriate things. We all know this, but that's why we don't use the word Comicsgate, because it's been tainted. It's just like people don't use the word Aryan anymore, which is stupid, because it's an actual a word that's been around for thousands of years to represent my people. Right, but we can't use it because some bad dudes from World War II used it. Screw you.
Yeah.
But anyway, he's been banging on Comicsgate. And now, if he was banging on people's, kind of horrible takes and some of the bad things that people were doing in Comicsgate, fine. But that's not. He's banging on the complete concept of it. And then here he is doing the same thing we've been doing, saying, "Don't mess with the sacred cow." If you want to make Nick Fury into Samuel L. Jackson's fine. He's a background character. It's better anyway this way. Sam Jackson's much better, right? But don't mess with the sacred cow. That is the issue, and he agrees with us. He
Well,
agrees with
the
us.
Lord of the Rings, especially, if you want other races, there's plenty of them in the lore and things. Like
It is
just
in there. Yeah.
I just want for clarification, when you say us, I'm not a member of that. So
Of what? Of what? The Polish race? I do apologize,
No.
Thunder. I want you dead.
true.
Polish
true,
race.
true.
Polish is not a race. Get out of here. They don't get to be their own race. There's not enough of them.
Stop being wise. Poland's not real. Okay.
They are part of they are the leftovers of the Schwabians.
It's like people are going to get confused in the
Listen,
chat.
they did make bowling.
Place. You just got to stop lying to people, Chet.
Fair enough.
What I was trying to say, but the thing my wife's watching got really, really loud, so I had to mute myself. In Tolkien's lore, there are other human races that exist perfectly well.
In the
It could have
East.
been really cool, the East, the South, to see why they sided with Sauron. They could have told that story.
Yeah.
They could have explained why they decided to side with what grievances did they have with the other humans that they sided with, the ultimate evil.
Well, see,
That could have been really cool, and instead we don't get that. What do we get? We get weird-looking black dwarves for some reason.
Well, see, the thing is, they can't tell that story, and we're going to get to that in a moment. But let's let Ben have his opinion first.
So, let me just do a little bit of historical digging. Did you guys have the same problem with The Witcher?
Did I have the same problem with Witcher? Sure, I did, because it's basically a ripoff by a Russian propagandist control during the Soviet times of Elric's Melonbone. Poor Elric.
Well, I was
What's
more.
this question? You know what he's asking you, and the answer is yes. I did. It doesn't bother me. I still like The Witcher. Like I can. It's not so much like I can't watch the show if they do it. If it's good, I'll watch it. But it is annoying when it's done purely for the sake of, and they just straight tell you it's done for the sake of quote unquote diversity.
Are you talking about Yennefer?
Yeah, Yennefer and Triss and the other characters who got swapped around specifically.
Yeah, but I mean, like I said, it comes down to the sacred cow. You can't change Geralt.
True.
Well,
Geralt's pretty much Geralt.
Now hold on. I've read the books, right? And let's address a couple things in order. A, the Geralt in both the games and the show is not the Geralt from the books. In the books, he's a lot more talkative. He's a lot more sociable, right? They chose to mimic the games a bit more, where he's a lot more
That's true.
stoic and standoffish, right? But also, the books were originally written in Polish, right? The writer is
Correct.
not American, right? And we make a decision to alter the language, and inherently in altering the language, you do alter some of the intent. But we do that for the purposes of making the story more approachable by an American audience or a
Sure.
Western audience, right? And so I don't view this as forced diversity for the sake of diversity, but we are doing it so that it's a different audience, and we want the audience to be able to see themselves in it and be able to interact with the material like other people want to. So in the same way that we change the language, like we're not presenting everything in Polish and having like captions. People get bored and wouldn't watch that. So I see it the same as changing the language in that, and let's be realistic. The Lord of the Rings, again, I agree with you. The rings is stupid. I'm just going to call it the Rings squared.
Yeah,
True.
no.
But it's not Tolkien's originally story, right? Even if you're going off the Silmarillion,
We're going to get into that. We're going to get into that. Hold that for a second. Hold that thing.
Already, just by the nature of the show itself, taking diversity out of the equation, we're already completely off the rails, right? So I look at it as an alternate universe, like a multiverse type thing. And in this universe, there just happens to be more diversity than there was in the original Tolkien story. I don't have a problem with that. Because again, we're not doing the original story. It's impossible, right? And so, and to make the story more approachable and more so people can see themselves in the story more, we have the diversity, and I think that's a good thing. I don't have a problem with that. In the same way that we changed the language to make it more approachable by the Western audience, this makes it more approachable by the Western audience as well.
Grimlock,
Okay.
Dragon.
Yay, diversity. Yay.
Grimlock, quit sucking on your Slurpee.
I'm smoking, so fuck it.
So quit smoking your Slurpee.
Oh. Hey, what he does in his own home,
Well-
it's his business.
That's fair. That is fair. Hey, Grimlock, what's
Well,
up?
if it was that big, I wouldn't be here with you guys. I'd be making real money.
Here would be my counter argument to that. Okay, then should we make Blade Chinese for China?
I think we should.
Actually, no. Here, you want to say that? I've actually
Yes.
proposed that on like Twitter and stuff like that. I'm fine with that, right?
Like a Chinese Blade. Well, would he still be Blade?
I mean,
Here's the count. The counter argument to that is always, well, Blade's race is important to his character, so why isn't it important to Geralt, his race?
well, so
Or Yennefer's?
I would actually disagree in some elements. Maybe it's not as much as like say Black Panther, right?
Okay, let's make Black Panther in Ireland.
Yeah.
Oh,
Would we change Black Panther to a Ginger? Make Ginger Jaguar?
I'd buy that.
I would too. That'd be
I mean,
sweet.
they do alternate universe things in Marvel where some of the
Have they done a white Black Panther? I honestly, I don't know. Have they ever done a white Black Panther?
They should.
I mean, I'm willing to bet a box
Because they had Black Panther as Daredevil.
The problem is if you're willing to make a change that they claim is a fundamental characteristic, their race, right? That's what this is. What all this, the critical race theory, all these theories, is it's a fundamental characteristic is race, right? You can't change it. No, I'm not. No, I'm not. No,
That's
I'm
not an
not.
assumption. They say that shit.
They say it all the time. Their blackness and my
Bill
whiteness
Sienkiewicz-
cannot be changed,
Okay.
right?
Bill Sienkiewicz was one of
Right.
them, so to him I say, oh, now it fucking matters to you.
Yeah,
Fuck you, Bill.
This is the point,
Yeah.
Bill Sienkiewicz.
But if that is a fundamental character aspect, I agree. I think it is. I agree with them. You shouldn't change it to appeal to other members of other races. I don't need Blade to be white to like Blade, to watch and love the Blade movies and read Blade comic books, just like my favorite female character in all comic books is Storm. I call on about her constantly. I love Storm. I wish they would do more with Storm. I don't need Storm to be a redhead or
It's going to take
a
Lizzie
Native American.
Simonson.
Right? I don't need her to be Cherokee like the other part of me. I don't need that. I just need her to be Storm. So when people say things like, well, we're trying to make it for a more American audience, why? The Lord of the Rings was always successful here by all peoples of all different shapes, colors, creeds, everything. Pretty much everybody knows it and at least appreciates it. I don't think you need to make changes like that to do that, especially in a world where the lore already affords it. All you have to do is just go use those characters. They're there, they're not really used in anything. So there's literally no good reason to not just reach down and grab the people from the South and grab the Easterlings and tell stories with those characters. You can do whole things that are focused there because there's so much vagueness in the lore. You can really play with that. So why not do it?
Well, and I want to move into the other aspect of this conversation, but I want to do it because I know what Ben's going to say, so I want to roll into that through Ben. So go ahead, Ben.
I mean, I get what you're saying, and I don't necessarily disagree with certain elements of it, but we just talked about having no sacred cows, right? And I don't have sacred cows with this stuff, with all of this literature. I've read comics and stuff enough, and I've read all this stuff to know that all of it is like fungible. We can change it, we can alter it, right? For all different universes and different dimensions and different realities. And that's all I consider this is to just be a different take. It's like Shakespeare, right? You know how many times they've told the story of Romeo and Juliet, right? Thousands of different times, and it's interesting because you do different takes on it, right?
Right.
And so I consider this in that same regards of someone taking the Tolkien story and just doing a different take on it, and there's nothing wrong with that. We've been doing that with art forever.
Yeah, and we have been, and I understand I get your point. And with the question you asked, which I didn't answer, regarding The Witcher, of Yennefer being and others being race swapped, I didn't care at all. However, if they had race swapped Geralt, I would have cared because I believe sacred cows shouldn't be touched. I'm the opposite of you in that regard. I don't mind the background flavor being changed, but the sacred cow shouldn't be, especially if it's its first representation of frickin' video, right? If
It's
they
not
had
his
made
first
100 Witcher shit and we're 1,000 years in the future, and then someone wants to make the Indian version, go right ahead. But it's the first representation,
It's not
right?
the first representation.
Well, for
They
Western
do.
audiences, it is.
Okay, well, yeah, it's like they had a movie already, right?
They had
in
a
Polish.
series in Poland for years.
Yeah, but you didn't watch it because it
I
was in
did.
Polish.
I did.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. I watched it too, but most people don't watch it because, again, it's in Polish, and we want it to be presented to us in English, thus altering the story and altering the nature of the whole
Amazing
narrative.
that you're saying this to me right now, while my very Irish white wife is sitting in here eating apples, watching, I believe, a Korean movie about a woman who was nearly sold into sex slavery, and then I think she's become some sort of mage assassin.
Oh yes.
But it's very Korean, and it
Yeah.
is in Korean with
Yeah.
English subtitles.
My wife watched that one too. I had to bear it. You have to bear it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't think that's true. Totally, I think there is some truth to it that people like to, be able to relate.
Incident to be applicable, like to the audience at large. That's completely ridiculous.
What? I didn't hear what you said.
Okay.
What's ridiculous?
The Korean drama sucks. I'm stand behind that shit.
Basically you're saying anecdotal evidence on a large compared to the larger scale.
You're using an antidote, right? An ancillated antidote. Your wife happens to be watching something with subtitles. Ergo, everyone's going to watch something with subtitles, and that's just not how this works.
No, not everyone will. But the point is you can't make things for everyone. Nothing that's made for everyone one works or is any good. It always has serious problems. If you make something that's really, really good and everyone just happens to like it, well, that's totally different. But when Tolkien wrote his books, they weren't for everyone. He wrote them with a very specific purpose in mind. Do you know what that is?
I mean, okay. Let's keep in mind that we do this constantly within media, right? So, for instance, what's a famous movie, like mobster movie, that you can think of? Right?
Godfather.
That's a good one. I was thinking the one with Matt Damon and Leonardo DiCaprio, right?
Yeah.
Right.
What the hell is that called?
I would rather go with Face Smasher, A Love Story.
Departed, right? That's The Departed.
Departed, yeah, that's a good movie. I like that movie.
That is a remake of an Asian film that tells the exact same story, but we just remade it in English with white guys.
Yeah.
Now, do we get to claim the same thing there? That
Yeah.
Sure.
We shouldn't have made
If the
argument.
people who originally made it were not okay with it, or if they had fans who were pissed off about it, I fully understand that completely. Why wouldn't they? There's a lot of people who get mad when they make anime and other things, and they white it up, right? I mean, we have whole things where they talk about whitewashing and all these other things with media and stuff.
Yeah,
Why is it a problem when white people do it one way, but it's not a problem to do it the other way?
sure. And let me introduce one little point so we can continue this conversation a little deeper, because there is a point we're not cumbering with this. But before I do that, Thundera, I really need you to tell your wife she's a sinner and she needs to repent. All right.
What she did-
No, K-dramas are awesome. She's
Yes.
fine.
No.
Oh, she's
Anyway.
watching. Jester thinks you're a sinner and you need to repent because you're watching. I think this is a Korean drama.
Yeah, it's all Korean drama. The whole
You're
world
getting
has been
you're getting a side eye, Jester. You're getting it right now.
Been absolutely absorbed into the Korean drama. Anyway, here's the important point that furthers this conversation. However, and I think it opens up the conversation a lot. And here it is. These guys, these two dudes, I can't remember their name, but there's two ginger dudes who are in charge of this, of this whole thing. They don't have the rights for any of it. All they
Sure.
have the rights for is the same thing Peter Jackson had. And that's probably what happens. They bought the rights to Peter Jackson's rights, right? So they have
Yes.
that's how they got it. They have the Lord of the Rings, the Hobbit, and the appendices that go with it. That's it. They don't have anything on the extra world stories or the Silmarillion or any of it. They don't own any of it. All they have is that original shit. So everything we're going to see in this, the 4 stories they're following in this, are completely made up by these dudes. Completely made up. All right. Now, with that in mind, however, seeing it's all their own personal fantasy, putting aside the fact that, do you really think you can write at the same level of Tolkien? Arrogance. But beyond that, that changes the conversation completely now. They're not remaking the Silmarillion here, guys. This is complete fantasy. Complete fantasy.
Yeah.
Does
Then
that
they
change
shouldn't
your
brand
opinion?
it. No, they shouldn't brand it Lord of the Rings. Then they should just call it Middle Earth.
Well, it's
First of all, it's
not.
a much better name. It'd be a
we
much
were-
better name to just call it Middle Earth: The Rings of Power, because one that just has way better alliteration titling. And two, then they can get away from misconceptions that it's based off of Tolkien's work or whatever. Then it can just be its own little side thing that it is, like the games are, right? All the games are side things that take from the canon but aren't actually canon.
Yeah, see, now, I think they should. I think they should be very clear that this is not canon. I think that's something that they should state openly. Okay. What about you, Grimlock? What do you think? Because keep in mind, this is not attached to any Lord of the Rings lore. This is completely made up, all of it.
Well, I'm in the same kind of place with Thundar. Then they shouldn't have called it Lord of the Rings. Again, we've seen this time and time again, where they take a franchise that has a long-standing fan base, a deeply invested fan base, which is I think what people tend to forget. You got people who have been invested into this most of their lives. You got people who was reading this as kids, and they're now as adults. So you got people who have had 20, 30-year investments into these franchises, these lores, whatever you want to call it. And to take it and go, oh, here's this thing you like, we're going to have the arrogance to change it and say things like, oh, well, we're correcting things. I've seen a few articles about that in regard to Lord of the Rings. We're correcting. How the fuck do you get off telling people we're correcting somebody else's work?
I agree with that.
And you're making these are not small changes, they're fundamental changes, because most of the fans, when they see this, they want to see a faithful adaptation. Yeah, you can't do 100% adaptation because some things just don't translate well to, especially to live action.
Yeah.
Certain things just don't work out that well. But to change these things, and then to take the attitude that you have that, oh, well, these people have a criticism, well, they're bigots, they're toxic, they're this or that,
Chinese.
is arrogance of the highest level. And then on top of that, I guess I could say I'm more qualified to speak on this because being the half and half, the resident half and half here, a lot of the race changes, that kind of pandering and patronizing bullshit is supposed to appeal to me somehow. Um, and it doesn't. It never has. That's why I think Miles Morales is fucking trash. Um,
Okay. Yeah,
I knew
Ben.
you were going to take a
it,
jab at
it's
Yeah,
Miles.
right. Of
it's.
course, you got to take a bad jab. Ben,
I'm
just so
not.
you
No, I'm
know,
not going to take a
Grimlock.
jab. I'd rip his head off.
Yeah, Grimlock is black.
Um,
He can say the N word.
He has the pass.
He has
I
the
don't
but
have the
pass.
pass. Fuck the
it's
pass.
to me, it's stupid. And then to say, well, we're giving you stories so people can see themselves. That's a bunch of bullshit too. Because we look at the world on a worldwide scale. White people are a minority. So you're telling me with all these other civilizations out here, there's no African folklore you can adapt to a series.
Oh yeah, there
There's
is.
So much.
no
There's so much.
there's no Asian
There's a
folklore you can
continent
adapt
full of
into a
it, actually.
series.
Yeah.
There's
Hey,
there's
Jimmy Ortiz. Hey, what's up,
no
buddy?
Latin or
Remember when I
Spanish lore
said
you.
that it was weird that people were trying to claim that Mary Shelley created science fiction or whatever, when science fiction is literally, well, not even, I'm not even being hyperbolic, is probably the oldest genre there is in all writing. Period. Literally, our oldest stories are
Yeah.
science fiction.
Well, yeah, but I like
And
her addition to it, though.
yeah, she had absolutely. She's a pivotal role in it, especially in the modern stuff. But my point is you could go back thousands of years, take stuff out of India, take stuff out of Egypt, out of China, out of Africa, and tell really cool stories that have never really been touched because our Anglican culture, or whatever you want to call it, our European-based culture, has pretty much only told, like, the mythologies from there. I have no problem with that. I love world history. I would love to watch a really cool, full Hollywood budgeted telling of Into the West or some of the Indian
That would
legends
be
and
cool,
lore.
dude. That would be
Oh
cool.
my
Yeah.
gosh, you could do such cool stuff, and they never do it. All they do is they go after Lord of the Rings or other things, and they change them because they think that they're doing a good thing. And I guess some of them are doing it out of malice, and they make that very clear. But the ones who are doing it because they just want to present the story, I don't hate those people, but I just think there's other ways to do it. Like Ben was actually saying, these stories aren't really original because they're not. Even Tolkien's aren't. He took them from other things, sometimes wholesale from other things. Okay, so go find other stories that are like that and tell them. There's plenty of other stories with all kinds of mythical races and creatures and magic and blah 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 that you could tell from all over the world that are awesome that we never get to see because they focus on a very Eurocentric reality.
And so this is the part of the conversation, Thundara, where you and I actually circle back and begin to agree with each other, right? So I've always been a fan of the Sangakushi, right, which is in English is the Romance of the Three Kingdoms, right? Been one of my
Oh
favorite
yeah.
stories, and I was into it before we got the awful video games that just made it into like a punching game, right? But I was reading that stuff since I was like 12 or something like that. And I've always really wanted like a really good, mini series or something like that to dig into on that. But I think,
Red Wall.
yeah, and Redwall's really good, right? But again, so my point being is, I think you guys are absolutely right, and I think part of the problem is that a lot of these media companies, these Western media companies, are worried that they won't get enough "quote unquote" white viewers if they don't tell stuff that has a more Western centric theme to it.
Right.
Well, yeah, because they're racists. They think that that's how everybody else thinks. It's just not true. Some of
Right.
the biggest movies in the world right now are coming out of China and in other places in the East, and they're making really good money if they were given the same, I'm going to use the lefties' favorite term, platform that the Western movies are. I think they would do fine. I really don't think most people give two white hot shits about what color the people on their TV is, as long as the story's good or the action's cool.
Sure,
The
but
rule of cool will always win.
that's true.
Always.
But
Yes.
no frickin' Bollywood though.
Listen,
I
Bollywood's
mean,
hilarious, and you know it.
I mean, for example, three franchises that black people love. I mean, absolutely love. None of them are black. Dragon Ball,
Yeah.
Naruto, and Zatoichi.
Oh,
It
If you
was
Zatoichi's the
kind
watch
of
the
a
best.
weird
original,
moment for me when I
and if you're
found out
watching the
how much.
original Zatoichi series, you're not
Oh
reading
yeah,
English.
it was kind
You're
of
not watching
crazy to me when I
English.
found that out. How many black folks, how many black dudes love Dragon Ball? Like way more than I've ever considered liking Dragon Ball. I think Dragon Ball's fine, but there's some people who that is like their life. They will not hear
Yes.
you, and some dudes you would never expect. They will not hear you besmirch Dragon Ball or Goku. They won't. They won't hear it.
Oh, Jimmy's throwing down the East LA card. We're in trouble now.
But and to go back even further, like Thundaro, you already know because you've seen the amount of shit I have. My favorite Marvel character is Storm.
Yep.
I have nothing in common with Storm. Nothing. I'm I'm not a goddess. I can't shoot lightning, in spite of the fact that just about every black hero does. I don't know why that's a fucking
Yeah,
thing.
why is that a thing? That's a good point.
Can we get some brothers that shoot some fire or something? Can a little bit?
That sounds racist.
Um,
Now you're talking about fried chicken.
Hey, now I like me some fried chicken.
I don't know. Wait a minute. How did black people get fried chicken?
Yeah,
Everybody eats fried chicken.
yeah, I know.
Literally, the whole world eats
seems
fried chicken.
unfair.
Yet somehow
It seems unfair.
it's like a black stereotype and a racist thing about the fried chicken. I don't like it. I don't like it.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
But anyway,
watermelon too.
oh, that's good stuff. But anyway, here's the thing, and my take on all this. As soon as I found out that they don't have any rights for any of the stuff they're doing, and this is all 100% made up, I was like, okay, fine. You can do whatever you want to do. So can I, right? I in no way think that these guys are equal to Tolkien, and I seriously doubt that it's going to be very good. However, they're creating their own thing that has nothing to do with canon. I don't care. Now the problem is, I do understand the arguments that are going here and everywhere else. This is a true sacred cow. You don't get much more sacred cow than Tolkien. You just don't. And I mean, you got to get into conversations of the Bible. People take Tolkien so seriously, right? So I understand why people don't want any molestation done to Tolkien in any way whatsoever. I get it. And especially if you go back and you're a Tolkienite, and if you listen to Tolkien's opinion, because keep in mind, way back after this book came out and was such a mega hit, because The Hobbit was a crush, it was an absolute hit, right? And then The Lord of the Rings. Shortly after the Lord of the Rings came out, the book, there were people scrambling, talking to Tolkien himself about turning it into a movie or a trilogy or a TV series. A lot of people were coming at him, right? And there was one he took that seemed to got a little ways by a guy named Zimmerman, and Tolkien talking, interacting with those guys. And I think what caught his eye was the art. The initial artwork he thought was excellent, but as he looked at the script, he sent a very stern letter to them, rejecting them, because he tried to explain, you don't understand how much work I put into creating this, and that every detail matters. And he specifically pulled out a thing about the time frame, because the Lord of the Rings takes place between September and May or sometime. It's not a whole year. The whole thing, and Tolkien had laid that all out. When you have scenes where they're in the dealing with the snow and various things like that, he laid out how the weather worked and everything was going depending on the time of year, where they were. All of this was meticulously laid out by Tolkien himself, and this guy was trying to rush it. Right, and he was like, "That's not how you do." And of course, in the end, the thing that really upset him was you're just focusing on all the fights and all this kind of stuff, but the real story of the Lord of the Rings is about the ring bearers, and they were completely missing that. And of course, he's right. So we know Tolkien's opinion on the matter. Don't mess with my stuff. Leave it alone. Is basically what his opinion was. So taking
Yeah.
that into account, me personally, if they're going to create their own fantasy thing, you do whatever you want to do. I don't think it's going to be particularly successful, but you go right ahead, because I don't mind that. But Tolkien certainly would have. So if you're a Tolkienite, I understand why you're pissed. I get it.
Well, it's interesting that I don't know when they started production on this. I don't know if Christopher was still alive or not, but I don't think so. I'm pretty sure this started right after he died. Uh, I do wonder what Christopher Tolkien, his son,
Yeah.
would have had to say about these things. I genuinely do, and obviously, Tolkien was pretty staunch, like you said. He
He
didn't
was.
like people messing with his stuff. But I do wonder greatly what Christopher would have said to this, because we do know that they had at one time, they had the world's most actual, pretty much the most renowned scholar for Tolkien in the world was working with them on this originally, and he left or he was fired or we don't really know.
Yeah,
But
that's true.
he's
That
not
is
working
true.
on it anymore, and I do wonder if that was part of it. I wonder if he was very adamant against changes or taking too many liberties. I do know that Christopher didn't like the movies, didn't like Peter Jackson's movies, and he was pretty vocal about it. So I can't imagine he'd be too thrilled with this. But at the same time, they have commissioned many, many video games that are, next to canon, we'll put it that way, that are based in Middle Earth, including, the Middle Earth Shadow of War games and the Middle Earth, all sorts of strategy games and the old movie games. So I don't know. It would be very interesting to see and to hear, but unfortunately he's gone, and I don't think the people in charge of it now have the same level of investment that Chris and his dad did, obviously, right? Because Chris was there with him while he was writing
Yeah,
a lot of it,
sure.
and he helped collate it and
Well, the
stuff. So
Cimmerillions because of Chris, for sure.
yeah.
But I do have a question, Ben.
Yeah.
Well, now them making their own thing, and the Grimlock, you're making a lot of noises. But yeah, I'm getting a lot of background. Anyway, they're making their own thing. They're creating their own canon. Okay, fine.
Yeah.
But one of the things they are using is Galadriel here, which I do believe this is the Galadriel character.
Yep.
And they're changing her story. You think they're going to get hit for that?
Uh, Probably. There's
Because
a
that's a
lot of
named
nerds.
character, right?
Right, that's a named character, and there's a lot of nerds who get really sensitive about this stuff. I think the real crime that we're all missing here is that Amazon spent 250 million for the rights, and how did they not get the extended rights for
That's
anything
true.
else? Only like when I first read about this, and I was like, they're already in the red 250 million dollars, and they haven't done anything. They just got the rights for this, and I assumed for 250 million dollars they were getting the rights for like everything Lord of the Rings related from
Yeah,
Tolkien.
me
But
too.
when you say just the books, holy crap, did they get like taken for a steal, right?
Hmm.
Because that's 250 million for just like the Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit and the appendices. Like they didn't even get the Silmarillion. Like, what do you? That's insane.
It is. And keep in mind, those two dudes that are doing this, they were acting like they did have the rights. They were initially acting like, oh yeah, well we can't, tell a
Yeah.
story and then season 2 or 200 years later and we lose all. They were acting as if they were doing the Cimmerillion and they had the rights. And then because of all the flack that came out, they had to come out and say, well, actually we don't have the rights. So they're actual full of shit, dude.
Yeah. No, I think there's a lot of criticisms to be made about just how ham-fisted this has been handled from the beginning. So you know, uh, we'll see, right? But for my 2 cents, the thing that I care about, frankly, the least out of all this is really, the changing of the races and such, right? And for the same reason as I said, right? We know they're going just completely off
Yeah.
the radar
Yeah.
for
That
this.
changes everything for me. That changes
And
everything.
really,
Yeah.
they could have just told and like you said, it's a lot of just like them wanting the IP to just put on. I mean, that's really why we have the rings. The rings. They really want you to know that this is the rings, right?
Yeah.
And they could. I mean, frankly, they probably could have saved themselves $250 million if they just would have done their own thing, right?
That's true. Yeah, that's true. But yeah, no, because seeing as they're doing 100% their own thing, I care much less.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
then again, I'm also not going to watch it though. I have no interest
Yeah,
in it because it's
yeah,
not the
I'm good.
Silmarillion.
I'm good. The other thing is in the chat, they're making a good point here. The amount of money they spent is a lot of money, but it's
It
not a
is.
lot of money to Amazon. Amazon's got so much liquid capital,
Well,
it's ridiculous.
they've probably
And
half
I
a billion
honestly
dollars into
think,
this shit, dude. I don't think that's
yeah,
nothing.
that's still nothing to them. They're $1 trillion company.
All right.
I don't think I honestly, tinfoil hat, whatever you want to call it, I think there's something very fishy going on with the funding of this show. Because they have spent, yeah, like you said, about $500 million on a
Easy.
show not even based off of the stuff. Like, what are you doing? That's just stupid. That doesn't even make sense.
Just so chat knows, that's like not how budgets work in like giant media. Right? Someone still has to answer for why we spent $500 million on a show. And why
Grimlock.
everyone didn't get
Grimlock. Grimlock. Okay, go ahead.
Sorry. I mean, like, you're right. For Amazon at large, like, it's not a lot of money, but like this doesn't operate at large, right? You know, the companies are very segregated and they're very compartmentalized, and so I guarantee you that when they proposed this budget, that there was a lot of raised eyebrows and stuff.
Yeah, no, I agree with that.
I have Grimlock muted for the moment. I don't know. He's
I don't know
dragging
what
bodies again.
he's dragging bodies and sucking on Slurpees. I don't know what the hell. But there's another aspect to this, though. There is another aspect to this because I think we all have our opinions on whether we agree or not. Me personally, like I said, well, do what you want to do. But there is some another aspect of this I think that's important. When you're writing or telling a story, you're allowed one suspension of disbelief, right? And then everyone's like, okay, that's the suspension of disbelief. Superheroes are real, wherever it is, and then everything else you need to kind of ground as much as possible if you want to have a successful story. So the Lord of the Rings, suspension is the fact that you live in a world with other races and magic and such, right? Now, if you had a bunch of black hobbits, okay, which they do, you're like, okay, fine, fine. But black dwarves, people who live underground, how did that happen? Because you're adding another layer of disbelief to me, right? Elves, who are the Alfir, right, or the Ilfir, or the Ishi, right, depending on what
Mhm.
culture you're in. These are very, very much talking about, of course, historically, they're talking about the blonde, blue-eyed Scandinavians or the Germanic peoples. Well, the Scythian movement, right? And that's what the elves are, right? So you have a very specific type of creature that is this. Now, having a black elf is less troublesome to me. It's like, well, okay, it's weird, but okay, whatever. But a black dwarf? Someone help me out, man. It doesn't
Yeah,
make
it doesn't make
sense.
any sense.
And where's her beard? I mean, she should have a beard.
Right. She should have a beard, and she should be at least like she's not just like black. She's like really pretty dark black. That doesn't make any sense for a being underground without some kind of like explanation. Because again, like you were just saying, Tolkien was ridiculously meticulous.
He was,
When
yeah.
he put something in his book, there was a reason it was in his book. From the very simple thing of the color of somebody's hair, there was a reason why that person and people like them had that color hair. He explained it. Now, I might not have explained it necessarily in the book. Sometimes he did. But he definitely had that lore ready to go in his mind, in
Well,
his
sure.
journals, or
In his
whatever.
cosmology, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
And that is why it's important, and even I say more important in a world like Middle Earth, because the creator of this world did specifically think of these things. He did specifically make the Shire folk basically British, which is a bunch of fair-skinned people, except for the one or
they
like the
are
three
they are the
groups that were
English.
lightly brown, olive, whatever.
That's true.
Um,
Yeah.
he did specifically make the elves very fair-skinned because he could have made the elves anything he damn wanted. He could have made them anything he wanted. He did specifically make the dwarves what he made the dwarves, and he did specifically make like the orcs what he made the orcs. There's a reasons for that, and those reasons are explained very well in most cases in the lore if you go read it. The genealogies and the this and the that. It's deep. It takes a while. The Silmarillion is big, if not bigger than the damn Bible.
It's a bit
But
ridiculous, yeah. Yeah.
all of the my point is he did think about these things. So
Uh-huh.
when the creator did think about these things, for you to come in and change it, you need to have a solid lore reason to do it. Otherwise, it's going to screw up with people's mind in their
Yeah.
brain. It doesn't make sense. One, it breaks the suspension of disbelief if you do know the lore, and two, also, okay, if this is supposed to be before the Lord of the Rings saga, right before the War of the Ring, where were all these characters at during then? Because they didn't exist. There were no black dwarves. There were no black hobbits. There were no, whatever black elves. That just didn't happen.
Well, because
So there's been like a meme
he
going
was telling
around.
a
Was there
Northern
like
European Anglo-Saxon
well,
story.
right?
That's true.
Was there
But
like an ethnic cleansing that we weren't told about? Like what's
well,
going on here? It doesn't make sense
well,
because Tolkien does have that stuff in his lore.
he
So if
does.
it
But
was there, it would be there.
well,
You see what I'm saying?
yeah, no, I get what you're saying, but let me. I want to very specifically on my question though, if you don't mind, Ben. Um, I can understand if you read the Silmarillion, then you could say, well, I guess you could write in black elves or black halflings. I mean, you could write it in as if you look at what was going on with the elves. I suppose we could work that out. It's odd, but it's not that big a deal. But black dwarves just doesn't make sense to me at all, Ben.
So we have to be very careful about this concept of the suspension of disbelief, right? You're treating that
Do we?
like yeah. Hold on, let me have my rant. Um, you're treating that like it's a PG-13 movie and you get one F-bomb, right? So, for instance, suspension, like from a suspension of disbelief, I never liked the giant spiders because, scientifically speaking, we know you can't have spiders that big. Arthropods, they at a certain size can't move, right? The physiology doesn't support that, right? And so, like, if we're talking about the suspension of disbelief, we break that already several times within the story, right? For other reasons. So suspension of disbelief becomes a very tenuous thing, especially in a fantasy story, that you got to be very careful on how much you're going to pull that thread because it's going to come tumbling down like a house of cards,
Hmm. Yeah,
right?
but explain to me people who spend their entire existence underground are black, please.
You're making the assumption because remember, Tolkien didn't explain literally everything for everything in his books. There was a
No.
lot of very open threads. So you're then making the assumption that every single clan of dwarf, every single one, spent all of their time underground constantly. So you're saying that it's impossible that there could have been a clan of dwarves of the seven clans that did their mining out in the open in like out in open air, right?
Yeah,
So
but
like
we know
like
how they were created and why they were created and when they were put into hibernation. We know all of this. We know
we know,
exactly.
but you're talking about age-old origin stuff, and they diverge far from those origins in the thousands of years that they existed. It's a long-lived race, right? So I get what you're saying again, but pulling on the thread of suspension of disbelief, we then have to apply that same logic to plenty of other things inside of the token lore, and which other things are going to come crumbling down. I don't consider this that egregious when compared to other aspects of Tolkien lore, right?
Hmm.
So I get what you're saying, but to me, it's not an egregious violation as, say, an anthropod that's the size of a mountain, right?
You
We
know,
had
I understand your issues with physiognomy,
same thing though.
yeah, but not
It,
really, because our
yes, it is.
point of suspension of disbelief is that magic is real, and magic is what has created those things. Has magic made the mysterious underground people black?
Magic made them from the beginning.
It's
You
true.
literally just said that they were created.
They were created. Yeah, they were. And they weren't supposed to be.
Yeah,
The gods got angry.
they
Yeah.
were created
Yeah.
magically. So they could have been created magically with black skin. Done.
All right. Well, I
I find it
disagree.
egregious.
Well, they could have been, but they weren't.
Yeah. But I mean,
No,
that's the only thing. I don't
I
mind the
find it
black
egregious.
dwarves. I don't mind the black elves. Whatever. Okay, because in the Silmarillion, it's possible that there could have been some out there. The way it's laid out and the lack of information, you're right on that, Ben. But the underground dwellers, I don't disagree. I mean, I don't agree because it's laid out very specifically what a dwarf is and why they are the way they are. But anyway, cool. Everyone's got their opinion. Let's move on to this next point, though, because I think this is a very important point. This picture they keep showing, they've seen in the trailer. We've seen the stills of this. They keep showing this picture, which I'm showing here right now. Someone argue with me and tell me that's not Numenor, especially with that mountain sitting in the background. Someone tell me that's not the harbor in Numenor.
No, it looks like it. I think
Yeah,
you're right.
and they don't own the rights to that.
Well, they'll just call it something else.
But I mean, it's even got the freaking mountain in the background, dude.
Yeah,
This is
I know.
definitely Numenor.
Again, for 250 million, how do they not get the rights to Numenor?
I know that's ridiculous, dude.
Right, of all
Money
things, it's
laundering.
something that's very. I mean, it's important to the overall lore, but to the main story of the Lord of the Rings, it could be completely missed. Most people don't even know what it is. Probably never even heard the term Numenor of the fans of the Lord of the Rings, and yet they didn't get the rights to it for that much money. That's just weird to me.
It
That
is
that
weird.
screams weird to me. That's a lot of money to throw at something and not get the rights.
Because who
Well-
put out the Lord of the Rings? Was that Warner Brothers or New Line? Lionsgate? Who put that out?
I believe it was Warner Brothers.
Warner Brothers. Okay, so I think what they basically did was bought the rights from whoever, Warner Brothers, and it's just the same rights that Peter Jackson had. And it's weird. Why didn't they just go right to the family themselves and just buy the entire rights for that
Here's
kind of money?
a counter argument to the idea that they're doing it just for Western audiences, or for modern audiences, I guess. Reacher, the
Oh
Reacher
my
show.
God, Reacher's badass. I watched it.
It is good. They don't really do that in there. Reacher's Reacher, like he's pretty much,
perfect
from
as
my
Reacher.
understanding.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's the character from the book. They don't change him around too much, if at all. He looks pretty much identical. He's almost the right height. That guy's actually 2 inches shorter, but you'd never know by the way they shoot it. They didn't feel the need to meddle like that. I've read all kinds of reviews from people who've read all of the books. They say it's great. It's exactly what they were hoping for. So I don't understand why. And I'm not saying this is like Ben's fault or he needs to even defend this. I just don't understand why there's this dichotomy. Why is Reacher allowed to be basically just Reacher, but then when we do the Lord of the Rings, we have to diversify it?
You need me to explain why a story?
No, I don't.
Verse
I don't need you to.
doesn't need to be diversified anymore.
I just don't understand why didn't they do any of it in Reacher? They didn't push any of it. The most they did was there's like a little bit of Southern racism, basically. But other than that, it's just they just push a story. Whereas this, there's obviously an intent here, and it's not just to reach other audiences. They have an intent here, and thankfully they didn't get their hands on all the rights, even though they threw a lot of money at it.
It's
Somebody,
weird.
whoever makes that decision, said no,
Right.
which is good because I don't want them to take the main story and turn Aragorn into,
Well,
I don't know,
I
an
would have
Indian
rather
or something.
seen, Silmarillion. But here's the thing.
yeah.
I agree with Ben. I think they should have saved their money and went and bought D&D for $2 and made whatever they wanted.
No, I completely agree. Like that's a whole different conversation. I think they got cheated. I think someone did a great scam on them, and they spent $250 million.
Well, could this just be like a big, like, tax shelter for them, basically, this production? Because that's a lot of money to throw at a show that we don't even know is going to be successful. It probably won't be not that successful. Holy crap. So, it's crazy to me. Like, there's just something really weird there. Obviously, Bezos is a very wealthy man, and he has a very powerful company, so it doesn't really matter at the end of the day. But that's a lot of money. That's more money than most states, can generate in a quarter, $500 million. And I don't mean American states; I mean states around the world. And it just blows my mind. It blows my mind that they'd spend that kind of money on something like this.
That I totally agree with. Yeah.
I already said it. I think it's a money laundering scheme. I think there's some money being moved because this show's gonna fail.
Well,
let's just be honest.
We don't know that.
Fail.
It could be cool as shit, dude. It could be badass.
I'm calling it now. This show's gonna fail.
All right, but it could be
badass
though.
It's already lined up for 5 seasons. They've already put $750 million into this. The show is gonna fail.
Yeah.
And it's gonna be because the backlash is already too big now. Wait till the show actually starts and the fans find more shit to bitch about.
Yeah.
So. And everybody's gonna watch the first couple of episodes just to see.
Yeah,
That's going to happen,
I
and it's
understand there's
going
going to be a
to
lot of
tail
controversy
off.
around it, but that doesn't mean it's not
But it
good. Just because people are mad doesn't mean it's not good. But I do want to put in this
Okay,
little point.
well, I'll put it this way. Look at the track record of shows that have come out that have been adapted for modern audiences that have been successful.
Well,
Um,
but also
Cowboy
looking at
Bebop just went
Amazon's
down
track
in
record, right?
flames,
The Wheel of Time
right?
is absolutely abysmal, and it's disrespectful to the creator.
Yes,
Reacher is
and
freaking spot on perfect, 10 out of 10,
Yeah, it's
right?
really good.
So,
yes,
and
but
they're both from
we're talking
Amazon.
about, we're talking about one franchise. I'm talking about overall, not just Amazon, because like you said, you just saw Wheel of Time go down in flames. Cowboy Bebop just went down in flames.
Yeah, that was stupid.
Um,
Yeah, that was a B production for one of the most beloved anime of all time. But
Death
I'm
Death Note went down in flames.
I'm
All of these
always
franchises,
outnumbered here.
yes, because the numbers aren't lying. All of these changes, it shows that okay, you can't be this stupid. No successful business, because we all know the other businesses watch each other. There's no way in the hell that the people at Amazon said we're going to sink 750 million into a franchise that has the kind of fan base that Lord of the Rings has, and intentionally piss them off and somehow be profitable
Okay.
with a show that's going to tail off after a couple episodes.
All right.
There's
Well,
no way in the hell you can say that without them. It has to be a money movement, some
I
kind of
know
money
we
move.
have to wait and see. I mean, I understand all the arguments and the upset stuff, but it could on the back end be good. But wait and see. However,
I
I did
doubt
want
it.
to bring in this kind of interesting point here from Wendy Pini. Now she's creator of ElfQuest. Now I love ElfQuest. Any of you guys read ElfQuest, the comic book?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
Okay. Now, well, Elquist is cool. I've always enjoyed it. It's weird. It's like savage, barbaric elves, but they're technically space elves. I don't know. It's weird. But anyway, Wendy was definitely, and she's the co-creator actually. But well, whatever. She in that story, she wanted to do a Tolkien-esque story, but she didn't want to mess with Tolkien because it's a sacred cow. So she created her own thing with inspiration from Tolkien, a la ElfQuest. And she's come on and made a point that she did that for an intentionally, and the people that are doing this complete fantasy role on Lord of the Rings should have taken that into account. Now, I respect Wendy, and I can't remember her husband's name, but I even backed their board game project they came out with years back. But I love ElfQuest. I think it's a lot of fun. I've always enjoyed it. It's a weird little book you might like if you want to go read the comic book. But her take is very clear. She did it, and you should do the same. Don't mess with Lord of the Rings. What do you think on that, there, Ben?
I mean, I think so. I'm going to agree, but not in the way that you think. I think we need new intellectual properties. I'm tired of us telling the same stories over and over again, and I do think that there is a corporate pressure to use the old IP simply because they're worried that any net new product won't get enough eyes, so they always feel like they need something that already exists in the cultural zeitgeist in order to for things to make money. And I think most of us here would agree that that doesn't need to be the case. And so I think it is a negative aspect of corporatism that kind of pushes this. But I, I don't believe in sacred cows. I think that again, I come from a literature perspective of Chaucer and Shakespeare. These guys have been around and had stuff longer than Tolkien ever has, and their stuff has been reinterpreted, redone, and redesigned for hundreds of years. Right? It's just a nature of literature and storytelling in general. Right? So I don't believe that there are any sacred cows in that regards.
Okay, Grimlock.
I agree that there should be new IPs, but too many of these businesses, they like you said, they listen to marketing. They go, oh, they're not going to know this, but that's been proven to be bullshit. That people won't gravitate to new IPs because again, I will bring it up. Name me a new IP that's had a better 30-year run than Spawn. I'm older than Spawn, but I remember when that was new. I remember when there was no Deadpool, and they've had
Deadpool,
fantastic runs.
Cable, Bishop.
Okay, exactly. All of these characters, all of these IPs that have come along, that was fantastic. People enjoyed. I remember a lot of people like True Blood. Um,
Yeah.
I'm over in True Blood.
So you're
So
saying
the
recently we haven't seen new IPs that have been successful.
yeah.
I see.
Well, it's I will agree with Ben. They don't give new IPs a chance, but at the same time, it's even worse to take an established IP if you know that you're not going to be faithful to it.
Yeah.
It's a waste of money, and it hasn't worked. There hasn't been a single IP that they have taken in the last 20 years and make these adaptations for modern audiences that was well received.
They
Not
sh-
one.
they should have stuck with Jupiter's Legacy.
I mean, I
Yeah.
mean, okay, not even they don't have even. All right, for example, the Teen Titans, they don't have the fan base that Lord of the Rings did, but look how piss poor that went over.
Wow, that was just
And
CW.
and,
Let's be fair. Yeah.
and yeah, but I'm saying if that show, if you'd have removed that the Titans franchise, that show in and of itself could have been decent. But because they took the Titans IP and basically, in my opinion, perverted it and
Yeah,
took
but
it so far away from what it was,
I get your
the
point.
the fans immediately crapped on it.
Right. I get your point and I agree. But let's take this into account. Peter Jackson got the rights to the legendary Lord of the Rings and he knocked it
Yeah.
out of the park, dude. Yeah.
Yeah, and Tolkien would have hated it.
Maybe, but it's beloved. It's beloved.
Chris hated it. Chris didn't like it. But here's my final argument on it. I believe, and I think we've seen this in our lifetimes especially, that if a story is good, you do not need the franchise backing to it. If your story is not good and you are going to use a franchise to drive sales, then your story is simply not good and you shouldn't tell that story. You shouldn't waste everybody's
Yes, because
time, money, and energy on it because that's what you're doing. You're just wasting everybody's time, money, and energy on it. A great example of this that we all know that some of us love is Harry Potter. Harry
Mhm.
Potter came out in the 90s. Harry Potter is the biggest and best-selling book series of all time. Harry Potter was not necessarily based off of anything. I mean, it was obviously, there's stuff taken, but directly, no. It was her own creation. She made it, and there you have it.
Mhm.
You did not need to take Harry Potter and shove it into Middle Earth. You did not need to
No.
take Harry Potter and shove it into Asgard. You didn't need any of these things because it was a good story.
It
If
was
a
solid.
story is good, it can stand on its own and it doesn't need other things. All they're doing when they do this stuff is saying they're insecure and they don't believe in the thing that they're putting forward. That's how I take it every time, and that's how everybody honestly should take it because that's what they're saying.
Yeah.
If they believed in it, it could stand on its own.
Unless you're Ethan Van Sciver and you hate Harry Potter. Fucking idiot.
Yes.
But anyway, I we got to move on. I got to get at least one more story in here before I got to pull it. But I don't think we got anywhere. I don't think we answered any question. I think we wasted an hour on that. I think it's what we did pretty
Good
much.
spirited conversation. I appreciate everyone's perspectives. I don't think it was a waste. I think this is a good conversation that needs to happen.
Yeah, I am
And
the arbiter of what is wasted and not, Ben.
Fine.
Okay.
Whatever.
Thank you. Anyway, this right here is a quick little thing. These two articles, and basically what these things are about is it looks like the Doctor Strange Into the Multiverse of Madness is going to have cameos galore. And I understand the Spider-Man movie has some cameos. Of course, we know that Andrew Garfield and the real Spider-Man, Tobey Maguire, was in it.
Well, I wouldn't even call them cameos, to be honest. But yes, go ahead.
But it sounds like they are dropping cameo after cameo in this thing. Is that a good idea?
We'll see.
No.
Someone said that this latest phase that Marvel is in is Kevin Feige in the bathtub with all of his Marvel toys wanting to play with everything at once, right?
That's fair. That's
And
fair.
there's a certain truth to that. I really liked the new Spider-Man, and I'm hoping for a lot of good cameos in the Multiverse of Madness. But you're right, there's a danger of going too bar.
Yeah.
And as long as they're done well, I think they'll be fun and great. But again, it's that key word, done well.
Well, here
Um,
is my spice in the noodles. Um, what if the idea, the actual thinking behind it? Let's give Feige credit for half a second, and assume that he's got a plan, and he's trying to figure out how do we take the Fox stuff and integrate it into the Marvel stuff. How do we do that? How do we
Right.
bridge that gap? And then on the multiverse, as we saw with Spider-Man, allows them to do that so easily. So they bring in some cameos from, like, say, Hugh Jackman, who's awesome Wolverine, and they maybe at the same time because we know Patrick Stewart is going to be playing Doctor Xavier, Charles Xavier, but he's not going to be the Charles Xavier going forward. He's from an alternate timeline, right? So
Hmm.
what if in the end of this movie we're getting introduced to the X-Men and we get their version of Charles Xavier, their version of Wolverine, Cyclops, Jean Grey, etc.
well, if
And they're
you remember,
using this as a
Chester,
crossover.
when WandaVision came out,
Hmm.
I and others, I honestly didn't see anybody else talk about it. I did after, but I had this theory that what they were setting up was a reverse House of M,
Yeah, yeah,
where
yeah.
Wanda effectively just creates the mutants or whatever,
Right.
bridges realities and brings them together, instead of erasing most of them. I still think that might be possible and
Hmm.
might be the case because at the end of WandaVision, when the last scene is she hears her kids who are supposed to not exist, she hears them out in the multiverse, and then that fades to black. The Doctor Strange movie, Multiverse of Madness, literally is Mom, MOM. I honestly am more M's. I honestly think that is the plan or something very akin to it. I still do.
Hmm.
So what I think they're going to do is I think you're right. I think we're going to either get a brief view of or just the straight up incarnation of whatever the MCU's mutants are going to be in this movie.
Hmm.
I genuinely I
Yeah.
think that's where they're going because I think they have to do it sooner rather than later. The longer they hold off, I don't think that's wise. I think they just need to pull. There's no good way to do it that isn't going to be convoluted as hell. So just do it and
Right.
just let's move on.
Well,
That's the best strategy.
and I think that allows them to do a lot of things by doing that. For instance, obscure reference, but Marvel's, the MCU's Quicksilver sucks balls and is dead,
Yeah,
whereas the Fox Quicksilver was freaking epic,
yeah,
right?
he was pretty good.
Which allows them to bring that version in. It also allows them to bring the First Class, Charles Xavier and Magneto. I don't know if they'll do that, but it gives them the opportunity to do that. Those actors are plenty young enough to do that, right?
Yep.
So I don't know. What do you think, Grimlock, of this cameos having an actual purpose, not just being, member berries?
It better have a purpose because if it doesn't have a purpose and they're just looking at it like, oh, look, we had these cameos in No Way Home and look at how the crowd ate it up, it's going to be early 90s Marvel where it's like, oh, you need to boost sales? Well, we'll just put Wolverine in it. Um,
Yeah, I get that.
it has to serve a purpose. I think I'll give Raimi over Feige the benefit of the doubt because if nothing else, Raimi does know how to tell a coherent story. Um,
Yeah,
I think they're gonna have to use the multiverse to not only explain the X-Men, they're gonna have to explain the Fantastic Four as well because you have two Marvel flagship franchises, 20 something movies in, they're not there, they're nowhere to be seen, they're nowhere to be found.
Right.
So you're gonna have to explain it somehow.
Somehow, and of
Now
course,
is
with the Illuminati coming in, we definitely got to get Reed Richards at a minimum.
now Now
yeah.
with the Fantastic Four, it's a bit easier to explain because interdimensional travel isn't out of their realm to begin with, and between the and I don't know which version of the Fantastic Four they're bringing because if they bring Franklin and Valerie as well as the
Oh my
original
God.
four, then yeah, it's a lot easier to explain the interdimensional travel with those two. Uh,
Yeah, but that would break
So
the world, dude. Yeah, no,
It would, but at least
yeah,
you can explain. It's easier to explain why they're gone
true,
because
true.
you know Franklin's going to be the MacGuffin anyway.
Yeah,
So
that's true. And Roger, when we have more information on the Alec Baldwin situation, we'll cover it then. I'm not going to jump into that until I do. But it looks like something's moving. Yes. But Ben,
and
is this just cameos for the sake of cameos and getting people into the seats, or is there purpose?
I mean, of course, I think there's purpose, right? They Kevin for a long time now has been desiring to have a unified Marvel Cinematic Universe, right? That's part of the reason why they purchased Fox was to get the X-Men and Fantastic Four franchises back under their umbrella. Uh, so yeah, I think there's absolutely design and purpose. I have trust in Kevin. I think that he's done very well with the cinematic universe, and that his purpose is to um uh, I mean, that's what the cinematic, yeah, but that's what the multiverse stuff is all about, is to explore all, other options and stuff, right? I think, it gives us an opportunity to expand um, the Marvel footprint outside of just like the Avengers and stuff like that, and give us some additional stories done, the quote unquote MCU way. So yeah, I think it has purpose.
Yeah, I
the
really
only
think
the
he's
only
tying something together. Yeah.
the only thing I worry about, and this is already happened in both in the comics far too often, is that when they want to explain away some lazy shit, it's the multiverse.
Well, that's
That
true.
I
Well,
I
yeah,
don't
okay.
want
Fair,
I
fair,
really don't
fair.
want to see that in the
As
MCU.
cool
I
as the
mean,
multiverse
with
is, it has
with
a
the mutants, I
habit
think you have
of doing this kind of stuff, right? I mean, for crying out loud, look at the lengths DC has repeatedly tried to go to fix or eliminate their multiverse entirely, because it just becomes a crutch. It becomes too easy, and it confuses the hell out of the readers. Um, so there is a very big danger of that. We do know from the Loki series, which, yeah, that happened. Um, Kang's coming. Whether he's going to show up soon or not, he's eventually going to be something they have to deal with. Obviously, the Avengers will. I'm assuming. Can't imagine there's going to have him be thrown away on the TV shows. Um, so we know that's coming, and that's the most reference we've gotten to anything related to Reed Richards is Kang as a descendant. Um, but that's it. So they're going to have to do something, and I bet you nobody's going to like it when they bring these other franchises in that they're definitely going to bring in. That's why they bought Fox up. Uh, so I think it's best to just do it honestly, do it quick, like a band-aid, rip it off. They're here now and move forward. I think if they make it too big long of a production, it's just going to make everybody realize and focus on the fact that they weren't there from the beginning, and it's going to feel weird. Just
Yeah.
do it,
Well,
get it done, and move on.
here's the thing on that. Here's the thing. I know that people have lost a lot of faith in Kevin Feige recently with this phase.
Yeah.
What are we? Phase 4 or 5? I don't know what the hell they're calling it. I get that, and you guys know, and you yelled at me a lot for being a staunch defender of Kevin Feige for quite a long time. And it's just you
Then the
stupid,
Eternals happen. Yeah.
you stupid Chester. All right, fine.
Captain Marvel happened.
But here's the thing. One thing you have to remember about Kevin Feige, he is corporate. He's going to follow what they want. He's going to throw their stuff in there. He does seem to be kind of overwhelmed with his toys right now. Fair enough. And the Disney Plus stuff has been kind of abysmal. Eternals was just a bad movie. However, in the end, you have to remember that Kevin Feige loves comic books. Truly, he's a comic book guy. He is one of us, right?
I debate
Well,
that.
No, he is.
he's,
You
he's
know, you
something.
I
can
debate
tell
that.
he is,
I will
right?
say this:
I'm
he's done
looking.
a
I'm looking at
fairly
Marvel's. I'm looking at Marvel's current line. I'm not seeing it, and he's
Well,
over
in
the
the
there,
comics
past
now too.
past 10 years or
So
so. He has taken some of the, I would say, at least the best, as insofar as most easily changed around, most easily adapted. That's what I'm looking for. Versions of these Marvel superheroes, and probably in many cases the most popular versions. Uh, and he's brought them to life in an amazing way with the
he
MCU.
has,
But
and
at
this could.
the same time, he didn't make that. He just brought it to life.
Well,
What he
he's
did
the.
was, and this is brilliant. I'm not knocking him for this. This is what we all wanted. He took other people's work, and he just made it make sense on a big screen. Usually, most of the time, he nailed it, no doubt. However, lately, especially, I do think he's straight said he has an ideological bent here, and his bias is starting to ring through. And because he was so successful, the studio is giving him a little bit more leeway. Now, the last few movies besides No Way Home were abysmal failures
So
by
you,
Marvel
you're
standards,
saying,
especially.
so you're saying he has the Lucas syndrome.
Yes.
All right.
So I think
I,
that he's going to get reined in by the new CEO, and he has been reined in quite a bit. And we're going to start to see that play out. That we do know there's been a ton of reshoots on this Doctor Strange movie, which isn't that unusual, but there have been a lot. And it is coming out very, I think got pushed back to May or something because of it. So we'll see what happens. But I think
Well,
what we do want is we want the Feige of old to have his ability and his vision play out in the MCU. Because for the most part, I think everybody liked it. What we don't want is either an ideologically biased Feige or a corporately manipulated Feige play
right.
out, because then we get Spider-Man 3. That's what ends up happening. If
Right.
you leave the guy in charge, the creative guy in charge, and let him do his thing, like Raimi did the first two Spider-Man films, you get the first two Spider-Man films. You start meddling, you start making demands, you start doing this, you start doing that, you get Spider-Man 3, which was a shit show by every metric. I don't think anybody wants to see that in the MCU. I think we want, and honestly, I think that's a lot of the problems with Endgame. I think there was a lot of that. I think there was a lot of putting stuff in that shouldn't have been, weird stuff like the girl
Yeah,
power
they
scene
just
that was
kept
weird.
throwing shit in. That's true. Yeah.
Yeah,
But I mean, I'm just saying, he could twist this brilliantly into
I,
bringing the X-Men into the Fantastic Four. It
I,
could be brilliant. It
I'm
could be.
gonna, I'm, I'm gonna go the other way. I think Kevin Feige gets too much benefit of the doubt because, by comparison, the utter incompetence of Warner Brothers and the way they've handled their extended
that's true.
universe makes him look that much more of a genius by fucking
Good point.
comparison. And when you
Solid
realize
point.
that he has, under his stewardship, 25 movies, and only about 5 of them have any kind of rewatchability, and 10 of them you might consider even fun movies.
Oh, I
I don't think
disagree.
I don't think he's that big of a genius.
All right, fine. I get
I,
it. So,
I,
Ben,
I
are you going
just
to throw me under
think
the
it's
bus too?
I just think it's by comparison. I just think it's a by comparison thing. I think that he's the bloom came off that rose the moment he started his obsession with Brie Larson for whatever fuck reason he has for
Yeah,
that.
that was weird. The Brie
Um,
Larson thing was weird.
I think he
So
lost
um,
her. Yeah.
his
I'll agree the Brie Larson thing is weird. I'm not the biggest Brie Larson fan myself, but I will.
the most wooden actress I've ever seen
No,
that
no, no,
has all of these
no, 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 no,
accolades.
no, no,
Like,
no, no, bullshit. Like you're condemning the man on one miscast where the
oh no,
rest
I'm
of the
not.
the
No,
rest
I'm
of the
saying
cast is
that's.
stellar. Like
I'm
let's take
saying that's not.
No,
That's the least of
Grimlock,
my problems with
Grimlock. He's
Feige.
just thinking with his dick, man.
I mean, yeah, that's fair. Like let's
Uh,
take a look at Captain America, right? Like in today's day and age, like that character should not work. But like the Chris Evans portrayal was so genuine that we all bought into it,
Yep.
right? Like
Oh yeah, that's
tell me when in Infinity War, like the Captain America music hits, the like dun 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 dun, 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 right? And the
oh no, the
audience,
Captain.
they had a sigh of
I give
relief.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So my point is like I think like we're being hyperbolic on the misses when there are far more hits,
Oh yeah, I agree.
far more successes.
Like I said,
Yeah,
I
but
say about I'll give them about 10. The rest of them, I would never care to see those again. Like
I would say
the only way I would
that
watch Black Panther again is if I was paid.
Yeah, well, that was mediocre, but
I will
It was
say
boring. It was boring. I
that
don't give a
happens
fuck
though.
how many black actors you
Problems like
squoze into that. It was boring.
Yeah,
And Michael B.
especially that
Jordan,
last
I'm
act.
sorry, he is overrated. I'm sorry.
all
I'm
right, no,
tired of him
that's
being in
fair.
every damn thing. There's more black actors out there than just
He's
Michael B.
he's
Jordan.
dead,
He,
so he's dead.
he's too nice.
He
And he's too
died.
nice of a guy to come off as a credible
I
villain.
saw his last
No,
movie. It's very sickly.
I mean
It
he
was
looks like
sad.
the kind of guy he looks like the kind of guy who would steal and apologize as he's running away. I don't know. I don't buy him as a villain.
geez. He
All
was
righty.
like
Oh,
I mean, don't get me wrong. I have other problems with the Black Panther movie. The third act was really questionable.
That that Dollar General CGI they went and got for that fight scene.
That was bad. That was bad.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I thought the Michael B. Jordan portrayal, like he got a lot of credit, and I think duly so, as being one of the better villain portrayals. Like you want to talk
Well,
about?
he wasn't a villain up until that last act where he just decided to mustache twirl for no damn reason. He was completely likable and a hero up until that point.
That's another reason. That's another thing that most of the MCU villains have been comedically bad.
Yeah, that's true.
Ben, this is your fault. You're the one that mentioned Wakanda.
When did I do that?
Oh no!
I will say this.
No, he didn't.
I will say this. In Hollywood, and we all know this is true, you only get credit for your last success.
That's true.
That's fair. That's true for. That's not Marvel. That's every single director, producer, actor. You do enough bombs, or you have enough missteps, and you're done. Right? They shuffle you off real quick out of the limelight and out of the front end of the office there.
Look at Ryan.
And I think Feige. Ryan Reynolds is a great example of that, and then of a comeback. I think Feige needs. I think Iger was more involved than we knew on some things, or somebody was. It might not have been Iger, but somebody above Feige was, to make sure that this thing happened. But Feige had the knowledge, because I do think he is a comic book fan. He's read, obviously he's read the material, right? He knows what he's doing, at least in that regard. So I think he took the comic books that he really liked, and the really more popular Marvel ones, and he did a very good job with them. Like you said, Captain America worked. They made it work. Because Chris was so genuine and he believed it, and the reason why it worked is because he felt honest. Simple as that. It wasn't like it was some snark or like cynical. This is who he is, and he was always that, and that's why it worked. The problem has been since Endgame especially, is it doesn't feel honest anymore. It feels like corporate cynical swill, and that's why it doesn't work. And the reason why No Way Home worked is because it didn't feel that way. It felt like Spider-Man. It felt honest. It felt real. It felt raw. There was a lot of emotion, and that felt good. Because I think a lot of people were worried, rightfully so, that this was just becoming just another corporate swill thing, right? And let's be honest, that's what it is. But at least when they present it to us, it doesn't look that way usually. And I think since Endgame, people have been like, another Marvel movie. Because it's become that, because Endgame was like such a huge release for the franchise and the biggest movie of all time. So I think that Feige only gets the benefit of the doubt as long as he's doing good enough for most people. The last few movies, besides the Spider-Man one, which I don't even.
That was a shot at me. Nice shade. Thank you.
Yes.
I'm most people now. You hear that, Chad? Write it down. Chester, most people.
Besides the Spider-Man movie, which I don't think Marvel gets credit for, to be honest. I think they get some credit. They don't get all of it. Sony had their hands in that too. Besides that, the last 3-4 movies from Marvel have been mediocre at best, and I think that wears thin. Even the shows, mediocre at best. Loki was okay. WandaVision, the ending was stupid. Loki was okay up until the ending. Then the ending got really convoluted.
I couldn't stand Loki.
The Captain America, the Falcon, and the Winter Soldier, as Chester loves to say. I didn't like any of that, to be honest. It just felt
cool. Way too preachy.
It felt way preachy and ham-fisted.
I'll say that was the weakest out of all of them, but I thoroughly enjoyed WandaVision, Loki, and what was the other one?
Exactly. What was the other one?
WandaVision's episodes 3 through 8 was freaking great. If they had stuck the landing at the end, it would have been the best of them easily.
Yes. I didn't like that Wanda just walked away and that there's seemingly no repercussions. Now, there might be in the next movie, but up until now, there isn't for what she did. And what she did was fucking evil. Absolutely evil for what happened to Wanda, or with Wanda. Now, you could say she was, she's hurt and emotional, blah, blah, blah. I don't care. What she did was evil. She kidnapped a whole bunch of people for weeks at a time. Like,
And that's
mind
fine.
rape them.
I don't mind
That'd
her
be
doing
fine.
something
Yeah,
evil. They should have brought
me
Doctor
neither.
Strange in and smashed her ass and took her off and have her
Yeah,
return
Smashed
to.
her ass. What kind of thing you
Oh,
wanted to see at the
all
end?
right, fine.
That's a
But
whole nother Marvel.
but then in the multiverse movie
By
here, they
Alex
could have had
Braun.
her redemption, right? Because
Yes,
as it
exactly.
stands, it's like, oh, no bad, no biggie. You don't understand what she went through.
Yeah.
Fuck
No,
you.
I didn't like that at all. But my point is you're only as good as your last success in Hollywood. That's pretty much always been the rule. Some great directors have put out masterpieces, and their next movie bombed, and they were gone. Never heard from them
That's
again.
fair. That's fair.
It's true.
Um,
And
so
he
I think Feige
fumbled
should get
Black Widow horribly.
yes. Oh my God, I
Oh,
think Feige should get only that much benefit of the doubt as everybody else gets.
All
So if
right,
he wants
fine,
more goodwill,
fine,
then he has to produce. And
fine.
and like I said, Spider-Man is fantastic. It's one of the best MCU movies, one of the best Marvel movies ever made. No Way Home is. Honestly, legitimately, genuinely.
All I said was
Yeah.
that he could make a really cool twist and pull in the X-Men and the Fantastic
He
Four.
could, but
That's all I said.
has the MCU done any really cool twists?
They have. Yes, they have.
yeah.
Which
Yes.
one? Which one?
Oh, gee, I don't know. We had Ant-Man come in,
Ant-Man movie.
and I'm sorry, Ben. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I didn't mean to go for it, Chad. I was just getting worked up here.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
I got a question, Chester. Since
yeah.
you mentioned the Fox X-Men, outside of Logan and Professor X, how much of that franchise do you want over? Because it's not memorable.
What I
Sure.
want is to see what Disney's going to do, or Marvel Studios will do with it. That's what I want to
They're
see.
gonna give you X-22 the whole time. That's gonna be your Wolverine. You don't
Well,
get Logan.
you mean 23? But
Whatever.
yeah. But no. Well, here's the thing. Now, if we get the X-Men story again, maybe that's not a smart idea. But what if we get New Mutants? What if we get X-Force? What if we get some of these other side
No,
things
I
like
think
the
that would be a dumb
Marauders?
idea. I think the smart idea is to reboot X-Men straight up with the most
Uh,
popular X-Men cast and just do it. The best thing they did with the X-Men movies is they used probably the most popular lineup in those movies. That's the smart
sure.
way to play it. Now that doesn't mean that's the way they're going to play it, and maybe they'll make it work without doing that. Because look at Guardians of the Galaxy, right? They made that work.
Yes, they
But
did.
if they're going to do the smart play is to take that '80s, early '90s group, those X-Men,
The
and just do
Claremont
it again.
stuff. Yeah, I get it.
Yes.
But here's my answer, Grimlock. Um, I think that they could do something very new and fresh with it. They could. And the thing is, I understand there's a lot of anger toward Feige. I get it, but I'm just saying the guy has orchestrated the greatest universe we've ever seen. The only thing that compares to it would be Harry Potter, right?
Well, and James Bond, but I don't. Yeah.
Not even, dude. James Bond's a singular dude. He's brought all these characters and all this stuff, and he's melded it together, and I think quite well. It's not
How dare
directly
you,
from the
sir?
comics.
How
It's
dare
not.
you erase Felix Unger? He's there. He exists.
Fair enough. But I'm just saying that he's done a good job. Let's see. He might fail. All right, fine. He might fail. But I'm thinking from looking at these articles that he might have something clever up his sleeve. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm
He
saying.
might. And I honestly think the clever thing would be the reverse House of M. I think that's a brilliant idea, honestly. And they can have that one for free. Do
Okay.
it. It's a
Well,
great idea. It would work. You wouldn't even need to really explain it. Just Wanda did it. There you go. There's your explanation. There you go. It's easy. You don't need a bunch of timey-wimey rules, and you don't have to set yourself up, write yourself into a corner. Just Wanda did it. There you go.
fair enough. Ben, you were trying to defend Kevin Feige, I do believe.
I mean, yeah, this all comes across as slightly like mouth breathing nerd armchair quarterbacking at a certain degree.
Well,
right?
welcome. Welcome.
Yeah. I mean, like, I'm not gonna fight you guys on some stuff like Eternals. I'll admit that was kind of horrible and was very poorly handled. And there are misses, but I think there's a lot more hits than there are misses.
Way more.
I agree.
Yeah, way more. And
Yeah.
and because of how complex these movies are, in how many moving parts they involve. Um, it's a matter of getting the right director with the right vision, with the right story. I think a great success story of how this all works is Guardians of the Galaxies. You bring in James Gunn, who had never handled a major A-class movie like that before, and he's a quirky like horror film director for the most of his career, and he
He's
comes
from
in and just makes it
Trauma,
have
dude.
fun. Yeah, and so the point is that there is the space for brilliance, and I think it happens more often than not. But again, part of comics in general is experimentation, and you're going to have some misses, and that's okay, right? And we just move on. I think there's room here to introduce the X-Men and all that stuff. Reverse House of M, whatever, or just due to the Kang, and Wanda and Doctor Strange's things, like all these other disparate elements all combining together of like kind of messing up the universe. I think there's more than enough explanation already. Retconning is just a history of comics in general, so I have no problem with that. Like anyone who's read comics for over a decade understands that retconning just happens all the time,
It's true.
right? And so that's just an element of comics that we shouldn't, that we should be okay with, right?
Well, I don't know if we should be okay with it, but it does exist.
Yeah, I wish they'd stop, but yeah, I
Yeah.
get it. But do you think do we just throw Kevin out with a bathwater? I mean,
No,
don't
no,
we? Doesn't he deserve time? Maybe he'll do something cool.
he's already done tons of cool things. For
Well,
me,
Yeah,
he's already,
like I said, he's better by comparison, so he has more rope. But
yeah. We
uh,
get it. You hate
um,
Kevin Feige. I've written it down twice.
I, I I didn't say I hate him. I just don't think he's the fucking genius everybody thinks he
Oh,
is. I
fair
think
enough.
that he was fortunate enough that he had a lot of early hits.
wait. Are you saying I
Like you
should
said,
name my kid Kevin Feige? Kevin.
No, I would not do that. That's a terrible idea.
Uh
First of
Okay,
all, Kevin's a horrible name.
I gotta
Don't
go
do that
talk
to
to
anybody.
my wife.
And second of all, Feige just sounds like a disease. Sounds like a rash or something. I got Feige.
oh
I got
my
the
god.
Feige
Oh
on
my
me.
god. Look how far we've descended.
Oh man, it's gone horribly wrong.
it's really
Hey,
close
how
to
did I
fungus.
talk about
So I mean,
Uncharted?
come
What
on.
happened?
All right.
Chester, what happened to
Yes.
Uncharted? I thought we were talking about that. Where'd that
Well,
go?
because you guys just went on.
No, I've not known for it.
All right. I did have it said. I've had several articles talk about it, well, we couldn't get on with it. But Uncharted is not doing well. And
Yeah,
it's
I
got a
didn't think
lot
it
of
would.
really negative reviews. And even the people who are giving it positive reviews are complaining, even though they're giving it 10 out of 10 for some reason. I don't know how you give something a 10 out of 10, but then say, but I don't get that. But it's just dumb. They should have just made a little
Because they're
action flick
paid.
with Tom Holland and been done with it. He's not.
Yeah,
If you want to see Nathan Drake, go watch the Nathan Fillion little short 15-minute fan film because it's freaking epic. Go watch that.
it's a lot of fun.
It is. Yeah. But
Well,
anyway,
like I said right at the beginning, the weirdest thing is there was like we were just talking about. Actually, it ties right into it. There was a lot of There's clearly a lot of studio meddling here because he doesn't even get his damn gun until right at the end of the movie, and he fires it once. And it's not like there's some weird anti-gun message or something. There's plenty of guns in the movie. He just doesn't have one, and it's weird.
it
It's
is
like,
weird. Yeah.
did you guys even look at the game? He's shooting. That's kind of the whole game. You're just
He
shooting people
he
and solving
kills a lot
puzzles.
of people. Yeah, he
Yeah.
does. Yeah. He's a bit of a badass. And it's
Yeah.
unfortunate they didn't bite that bullet sooner and give us Nathan Fillion. And who was the other guy in that short? I can't remember that actor's name, but he was perfect as Sully, dude. That would have been the movie right there. That would have been
Yeah,
awesome. But anyway, I
Well,
don't have time. I got to go. I got to get to work, man. I got to
get
get
out of
showers
here.
and stuff.
Go to work. You
But
stink. God,
I know, dude.
smell you
I know.
from here.
God, you see what I got to deal with, Ben? You see?
this is why I started joining to save you, Chat.
Thank you. Thank you. I need some help. But
Yeah,
whatever. Thank you guys for coming. It's always fun to have chats and discuss things and get different opinions, of course. Whether it's armchair quarterbacking or not, it doesn't matter. It's the whole point. It's fun.
Yeah.
We're just having a goof. And we'll see how it comes. Lately, the MCU has been a little light. Maybe they'll pick it up. We'll see. But nevertheless, thank you all. Keep in mind, tomorrow we're going to be doing comics. There's a few interesting stories. I'm going to do another showcase on another character. I might do a villain. Maybe. I might. And
Uh-oh.
we'll get into that and have some fun for sure.
Is his
But
name Feige?
shut up. But other than that, thank you very much, Ben. Thank you very much, Grimlock. Thundera takes out of here, man.
Let's get out of here. I don't have much to say. I'm going to say a real simple thing. If you haven't seen it already, go watch Spider-Man. If you don't want to give Disney the money, then go pay half price, or there's other ways. But definitely watch it. Chester, talking to you. Definitely watch it. It's a great time. If you're a Spider-Man fan, you're going to love it. That is all you're getting out of me today for wisdom. Go watch that movie.
Namaste.
That's right.
Okay. Later.